At the Institute of Supernatural Abilities, every day was full of mysteries. The young man, immersed in his phone, was enthusiastically playing some game. His name was Jack, and he was delighted with his considerable advantage in the game. Suddenly, a rock flew at him with all its force, causing him to stop playing and drop his phone on the ground. Karen asked him what he was doing and advised him to focus on his studies and not his games. Jack replied with a smile that he could combine training with playing and it wouldn't hinder him in any way. He reminded Karen that she had gotten a 5-star job at 16, and he was having a hard time catching up. The girl was indignant and declared that she would never allow herself to relax or be distracted by such a game. While they were arguing, the other students were surprised by the return of the goddess Karen from special training. Everyone knew that it had been a long time since a genius with a 5-star profession had appeared, and so they admired the girl madly. Someone asked who was standing next to her, and one of the students replied that it was an 18-year-old guy who still had not awakened to a normal profession. Nobody understood how such a beautiful girl could communicate with such a loser. Blue Star is a world where reality and game intertwine. The man explained the rules of the exam to the students and asked them to read it carefully. Jack was surprised by Karen's serious attitude towards the test, which he had already taken 3 times. The man explained that the summoned student must go to the testing area and quickly undergo a career determination. Everyone around was discussing their future professions and their importance. It was clearly important to them to get a good profession. Suddenly a voice called out to Jack as he was next to be tested, and the boy responded. When they saw him, everyone started laughing, because in all these years he had never achieved any profession. A woman named Sarah reassured the boy, saying that they would start when he was ready. She then asked him to touch the crystal and relax for full synchronization. Jack touched without fear and concentrated, because he finally wanted to awaken the profession. The crystal lit up, resonating with Jack, and everything turned blue. Awakening automatically gave out basic skills. At the next stage, the crystal showed the number of stars. The system identified Jack as having a 1-star ability, Mud Swamp. Seeing 1 star, Sarah looked down, considering it a terrible result and feeling slightly upset. The other students laughed, claiming that trash would remain trash and that Jack would never amount to anything. Sarah asked Jack about his awakened abilities because she was interested in learning about it. The boy remained silent, and the teacher became very worried. She saw pain in his eyes, realizing that this was a heavy blow for him, because the guy had been waiting for this day for a long time, and also that after so many years he received only 1 star. After going further, the guy received the starting equipment and realized that by putting it on, he would move on to the next level. Jack clutched the equipment to himself and thought about what he had heard when he received the ability. He was informed that the operator had completed the awakening and had fully activated the system, and also that he received abilities, dark kinship, and a secret gift. Jack didn't understand what these abilities had to do with him, because they were pure evil energy. After this, the system detected a 1-star ability and began to warn the operator about the transformation. Jack thought it all sounded bad, but he had a battlefield to fight for. A group of 5 people would enter a dungeon where each would fight monsters and get acquainted with the abilities they had acquired. Sarah asked the students to confirm their abilities and not to worry, because only the owners would see them. Jack thought that the forbidden dark ability seemed dangerous, and if it was found out, he would be in trouble. After full preparation, the portal opened and Sarah invited everyone to pass through it. Having put on his equipment, Jack boldly entered the portal and moved to the dungeon. The guy found himself behind the bushes, and there were creepy monsters nearby. He noted that the area was being monitored by drones, and he would not be able to use forbidden spells, so all he could do was hide. The man pointed at the screen and asked what Jack was doing while everyone else was fighting. Sarah explained that the boy was in poor health and his abilities had awakened late. The man said to return him and not let him take the exam again, because he has a 1-star profession and cannot be a real adventurer. Suddenly the connection with the drone was lost, and the guy at the computer couldn't explain it. The dungeon has detected a massive surge of power, far exceeding the average monster threat level. On the battlefield, one of the students did not understand how such a powerful monster ended up there. He told his brothers to rise up and declared that they had had enough of being slaves. He shouted to everyone to kill the invaders, and the monsters went on the attack. Jack didn't understand why the drone fell on his head. Suddenly the main monster discovered the guy and laughingly said that he shouldn't hide. The guy didn't understand why there were so many monsters here, but he saw the leader in the middle. It dawned on Jack that the drone crash was a great opportunity to test the dark technology. As he rose, he began to activate the technique, and the monsters froze in shock. The guy at the computer reported a loss of communication with the drones and a sudden outbreak of dark force in the dungeon. Sarah worried that king-level monsters were capable of destroying an entire city, and it was unclear where they came from in the viewing area. At this time, the monster did not understand what was happening around him. Jack, realizing the power of the forbidden spell, thought it was cool. After the monsters died, the system reported that he received 10 experience points for killing a common goblin. The leader of the group did not understand how a person could possess such a powerful dark force. He could not move and understood that death was near. He shouted that no one should have come here. And after that, the system informed Jack that he had received 6,000 experience points for killing a veteran goblin. The guy was happy to reach level 10, although in last year's tests, players rose to a maximum of 2. Jack noted that the normal mobs dropped little experience, but the elite monster dropped a lot. He saw objects from the killed monsters falling to the ground. And suddenly I noticed loot from a veteran goblin. 2 orange items. The first was an emblem that increased stats permanently, which surprised Jack with its rarity. The second was an epic treasure of incredible power called the Shadow Assassin's Claws. Jack realized that if he continued like this, he would easily reach a high level and become rich. Suddenly, a voice was heard ordering all candidates to immediately stop the combat testing and use teleportation scrolls to evacuate. Out of the corner of his eye, the guy noticed that everything around him was completely destroyed. Then he realized that this was the power of forbidden spells. Jack panicked, fearing that someone would find out about his abilities, and decided to run away. The commander ordered everyone to return to the city immediately. He understood that a monster of the highest royal level was beyond their power. Suddenly, the source of the dark power disappeared, leaving the man confused. He was afraid that the monster might come out of the dungeon and create danger. Sarah said they couldn't handle it and she had to report it. Suddenly, Jack appeared next to her, excitedly calling for the teacher. The girl asked with an anxious look if everything was okay with the guy. Jack said he was fine and Sarah told him to leave quickly. The institute was temporarily closed and it was impossible to return unless necessary. Karen and Jack walked down the street, discussing what had happened. After hearing the information from the girl, he wondered about the source of the elite goblin's power. When the boy was able to wake up, the testing was interrupted. Karen offered to join her team, saying that defensive spells can save lives, but are useless in solo leveling. The guy thanked him for his concern, but refused, saying that he could handle it himself. He wanted to show the girl his true strength, but it was better not to use forbidden spells in front of strangers. The girl, with a menacing look, declared that she would wait for him at the western gate tomorrow. She quickly left, and Jack tried to stop her. He didn't understand why the girl was ignoring him, surprised by her stubbornness. Then Jack began to think about pretending to be sick and not coming. Suddenly he had an idea, although he didn't know if it would work. He thought that some equipment had military capabilities, and one could buy the necessary things for the mud swamp by pretending to own it. As he entered the room, he hoped that the equipment skills would not turn into forbidden spells. At that moment, a beautiful girl approached him, said hello, and asked if she could help. Jack then said that he wanted to buy equipment that would allow him to use the mud swamp, whether it was a weapon or clothing. The girl started offering equipment with high-level techniques that are better suited for leveling. Jack explained that he needed simpler equipment, not too high level. The annoyed girl left, handing the client over to a new employee. The new girl came up, said hello, and offered her help. Jack began to examine each weapon carefully. In the end, he chose a ring, and the girl asked if everything was okay with him. Jack confirmed the choice and asked where he could sell the loot. Soon, they found themselves in the office of a man who asked in an arrogant voice to show the thing. Jack held out the trophy and asked about the cost of the equipment. The man was surprised when he saw the orange-level weapon, noting that it was ideal for beginners. He said it was a great item that would interest his customers. After discussing the terms, the man asked to wait while he contacted the client. He called the gentleman and asked if he would like to pick up some starting equipment for his son. Returning to Jack, the man named the price of the goods, $50,000. He asked to draw up paperwork to transfer money to the guy's account. Meanwhile, the workers were discussing why the first girl left the client. Suddenly, they saw Jack with the master and were surprised. One of them told about selling equipment for 50,000 crystals. The first girl, upon learning of the missed opportunity, was horrified. She stated that the commission should be hers and insisted on it. The new girl wished Jack to take care of himself and asked him to come to her next time. Introducing herself as Ebby, she said goodbye to the guy with a smile. The next day, the boy walked along whistling a tune in his new gear. Last night, he tried out the new abilities and was glad that the system did not transform them. Now Jack doesn't have to worry about being discovered, and that calms him down. Suddenly, he saw Karen and greeted her joyfully, his eyes shining. At the same time, the girl was called by her friends. Then, with a smile on her face, she decided to introduce her guildmates to Jack. After looking at them, the guy wondered why these two looked like he owed them a lot. Suddenly, a guy came up to Karen and asked if he remembered correctly that she would soon have her second shift. Hearing this, Jack was surprised, because professions can be changed every 30 levels. The student, clearly trying to attract attention, handed the girl a gift and said that it was for her. The guild members were surprised when they saw this. because this thing was an elite potion that permanently increased stats. Then the student said that money was not a problem, because it only cost 30,000 crystals. However, Karen thanked him for his concern, but could not accept this gift. After that, she said that she still had a lot of things to do and suggested that they get to work. The student got angry and started asking her if she was really going to waste her time on that loser. Then Karen told him in a stern voice to watch his language, and there was anger in her eyes. The guy stated that the guy had a 1-star profession, and it would be a waste of time to go with him. Jack didn't understand why the guy suddenly attacked him like that, and who he was anyway. The girl from the clan tried to calm the student down, but he just wouldn't shut up. He told Jack that the potion alone was worth far more than the boy himself. Then Jack said that it was just a potion that gave 3 dexterity. Another student asked if the guy had anything better and offered to show him. If Jack doesn't have one, he'll be on his knees. At this time, Jack took the artifact in his hand and said that the guy better get ready. It was an emblem of the Vanguard, permanently increasing the characteristics. Seeing this, all the clan members were shocked because they could not believe that such an item existed. Jack said that the only way to find out is to use it. After that, he handed it to Karen and told her not to worry, because he found it at his home. He asked her to accept this thing quickly, because they had to find out the truth. Karen stood there in confusion, but began to use it. After that, looking at her hand, she exclaimed that the characteristics had actually increased. The students were perplexed, because they did not understand where the guy got such a treasure. Then Jack said that when he starts apologizing, he should speak louder, because the guy has poor hearing. He asked if the gentleman wanted to retract his words. At that moment, the student knelt down in front of Jack, who looked at him with a grin. After that, he returned and said goodbye to Karen's guildmates. As they walked, the girl began to apologize, but the guy said that it would not affect their relationship in any way. With a smile on his face, Jack said that the girl shouldn't have accompanied him, because he would have been glad if she had gone to the second shift. Karen started screaming that the guy shouldn't treat himself like that. After that, she handed the book to the guy and said that it was for him. It turned out to be a tome of spells, and the girl noted that he would be able to study them when he reached the required level. Those days were purple quality, but the girl also said that no amount of money would be enough to thank the guy for that emblem. After a moment's thought, Jack said with a smile on his face that he would accept the gift then. After some time, they came to the dungeon of the ominous cemetery of the district. The girl continued to practice with her bow while Jack supported her, sitting on the ground. The guy was sad because he couldn't tell Karen that he was already level 10, so he felt helpless. Suddenly, the girl received a call from someone shouting that they had received news that a powerful boss would soon appear at the cemetery. The girl said that it was quite a rare event, so she should attend. Karen remained silent on the phone, and the student asked again if she was coming. Oliver said that the girl should go, because this enemy drops the item he needs. Hearing this, Karen thought about his words. Jack told her that it was okay if she went and he wouldn't be upset at all. Then the girl told him to return to the safe zone and wait for her. The guy, without losing heart for a minute, happily answered her that he would wait for her. After she began to move away, Jack yelled at her to be careful. When the guy was left alone, he decided to deal with the strongest boss. He was glad that he learned 2 more abilities yesterday. Unfortunately, he only had 3 ability bars so far, and Karen's book required level 15. At this time, the girl was approaching the ominous cemetery. The student said that the main boss would appear in the tower at the very heart of the dungeon. Suddenly, some detachment broke out ahead of them. Taking a closer look at them, the guys saw that it was Karen from the Guild of Stern Lions. They all quickly approached the cemetery, attacking opponents along the way to clear the way. The girl became noticeably stronger, and all because she now had the 10th level of agility. At this time, Jack was already in the very heart of the dungeon and arrived there much faster than the others. He was amazed that it only took him 1 spatial spell and he was there. This ability was called Dark Slide. Seeing the main monster, Jack greeted him and said that he was late. The main monster began to shout that the overconfident adventurer dared to appear alone. Then Jack, without thinking, began to use his techniques and was already right behind the monster. He replied that he simply didn't want to share the loot because he needed it more. The monster cried out in shock, trying to dodge the blows. After a couple of minutes, Jack received notifications from the system about the number of points received. He also received 50,000 points for killing the fallen lich. This place really was a mountain of accessories and precious stones. Seeing the emblem, Jack decided to take it, because it would be very useful, even though it slightly reduces stamina. Then the system told the guy that a special item had been found in his inventory. Jack now knew that this emblem was capable of revealing hidden professions. However, a real man would choose the god of magic and would not think long. As they approached the cemetery, the Karen clan was surprised to see a terrifying aura everywhere. The girl immediately ordered everyone to retreat, because she did not want to put everyone in danger. The student was angry that they were unlucky this time, and also that he would not be able to get the necessary item now. Karen thought she needed to warn Jack quickly. Opening her phone, the girl saw a message from her boyfriend saying that he had urgent business. In fact, the guy was heading to the professions hall. When he entered, he saw no one and thought that everything was closed. However, he was met by a woman who asked if he had come for an assignment to change his profession. After that, the girl said that first she needed the guy's data and began to write it down. When she learned that Jack had only awakened at the age of 18, she thought that this was not the best result. After that, she told the guy to follow her, because the magical professions were nearby. After seeing him off, the girl ordered him to follow the instructions, and Jack thanked her. At this time, the captain approached the girl and said that they were investigating a new alarm signal. She was surprised that this was happening for the second day in a row, and the captain explained, "That is precisely why the authorities sent him here with a request to the singles to take action." At this time, Jack learned that the God of Magic was a preliminary mission and decided to start with it. He was indeed on his way to a hidden profession, having received a level 5 mission. As he left, he said goodbye to the girl, who smiled sweetly at him. The guy noticed that another girl was meeting him, which made him a little wary. The captain's friend noted that this was the first time he had seen a single person with such equipment. The captain said that all loners have special hidden professions that allow them to use the powers of darkness. They were noticeable even after they had dissipated. Approaching the captain, the girl reported that she had not found any clues. Apparently, the source of power had disappeared. The man mentioned that he had been receiving frequent reports of strange anomalies in the dungeons lately, which foreshadowed a catastrophe. The girl promised to definitely find out from her superiors and request reinforcements. One of the men asked if she could confirm that the monster was the culprit behind the power surge. The girl asked if they wanted to say that the cause could be a mutant like her. The threat level was beyond the king's, and human flesh was not capable of withstanding and controlling such an amount of power. In other words, there is a powerful monster lurking in the city that is capable of causing a catastrophe. The girl was afraid that he was hiding in the shadows, and they needed to find him urgently. At this time, Jack at home said that complete darkness helps him to completely relax. He mused that at level 30, 4 more skill bars opened up, and decided to start with Karen's books. Studying them one by one, the guy received new passive abilities. It turned out that forbidden spells can be combined with low-level techniques. Now he has a new defensive ability, and simple damage is no longer a threat to him. However, he still had 4 unfilled ability bars. Jack decided to go to the stock exchange and headed there that same day. While he was in the elevator, the worker recognized him. In the elevator, he was noticed by a girl who introduced herself as Samantha. She said that Ebby was accompanying another client, and that she would be helping the guy today. Jack insisted on finding Ebby himself and began to leave. Samantha was angry, not understanding how she was worse than Abby. As she followed him, she continued to say that it was still her job. Abby's voice was suddenly heard calling for Jack. Seeing her, the guy asked if she had finished. Out of breath, Abby said she was just having lunch. Jack apologized for disturbing her and offered to treat her to dinner. The guy also said that he wanted to sell 2 skill books and buy new abilities. The master approved this and asked Ebby to take care of the master. The man thought that if the guy brought orange weapons last time, then now he would bring purple skill books. At the restaurant, Jack asked for the bill. Ebby said she had already paid for everything for an important reason. The guy, confused, asked what she was talking about, and the girl replied that it was a secret. Jack wanted to walk her home, but she needed to go somewhere, so she called a taxi. When the driver asked for the address, Ebby replied that she was going to the second city hospital. Thanks to Mr. Jack, she earned enough money, and after that, she was able to pay for her father's treatment. Suddenly, the car's windshield shattered and the driver began to bleed. It turned out that a monster had landed right on the car. Ebby, having fallen to the ground, could not understand where the monsters appeared from in the safe zone. At that moment, a mutant emerged from the portal with a completely calm appearance. The girl tried to use her power, but it didn't help in any way, which confused Ebby. The monster began to attack the girl from above, and she tried to escape. Suddenly, the captain appeared and deflected the monster's blow, protecting the girl. Everything around began to rot, and no one could understand what was happening. The captain understood that an ordinary person could not cope with these monsters. The man remembered his friend's words about a hidden, powerful monster. At that moment, another attack almost hit the captain, but he managed to dodge. The man, seeing the villain, asked if he was a mutant. Then the guy said mockingly that he didn't look like trash at all. This was the chosen one that humanity had never met. The guy had much more strength than the people on the third shift. The villain, when starting the attack, told the man that he was on his territory. After the attack began, he shouted that the man was a real weakling. The monster flew towards the captain at the speed of light, and he desperately fought off the attacks. At that moment, the guy was surprised at how strong he had become. At that moment, a voice came from his pendant, menacingly telling him not to be narcissistic. The mysterious voice reminded him that without him, he would be the same as his fellows. After that, he ordered to prove that the guy would be useful to him. The villain had to sacrifice all the inhabitants of the city and mark his appearance in the world. At this time, Jack was leaving the public toilet, clearly not suspecting anything. When he looked around, he was surprised. Only a moment had passed while he was in the toilet. Suddenly, one of the monsters started attacking the guy. Jack, with his agility, easily dodged the blow. The system then showed him a side spell called Earth Thorn Wall. Jack was glad he had spent money on a weapon with a purple skill, as it enhanced his earth spells. Noticing this, the villain said that he could not believe that there were still people left in the city. Jack was surprised to see him, because he didn't expect there to be anyone other than monsters. Suddenly, the guy's hand reached out to Jack and grabbed him. Without moving, he began to activate the dark force. The villain was surprised that the man was able to repel his attack. Jack's dark power was very powerful and the boy was confused. He screamed that the student's threat level exceeded his own, and he was scared. Jack thought at this point that the guy looked pretty strong, and would most likely have to use the forbidden spell in the city. At that moment, the villain's arm broke and he froze completely. The boy started shouting to his master for help, because he didn't know what to do next. Everyone was ordered to retreat immediately and close the portal. The villain was perplexed and said that his strength had reached its limit. Jack laughed at him with a haughty look. Mutants were those who, during the process of awakening, received a profession of darkness. They could wield the power of darkness, which made them stronger than any profession at the same level. However, they often lost her protection. The Karen clan approached the scene and were surprised. Jack thought he should quickly gather up the loot and hurry home. Everyone was shocked that the monster invasion into the kingdom had stopped. The woman thought that two destructive spells appeared at the same time. First the invasion, then the disappearance. Elsewhere, it was mostly safe, except for heavy casualties. However, in the south of the city, under the command of the captain, the situation was unknown. One of the guys, coming closer, was very surprised that all the things had been stolen. Suddenly the woman ordered him to move and asked who he was. He showed the emblem and said that he was a member of the Cloud Kingdom. She clarified that this is an unofficial organization consisting only of fighters. She also heard that they always act covertly. When the woman asked why he was there, the man replied that it was all because of that villain. He was a member of the group, but betrayed the organization. One of the girls asked if this was the reason they came here. Someone asked if they killed him. The man thought that this guy liked to hide in the space of the kingdom. The girl thought that Captain Sam was the strongest of the third transformation, but his entire army was destroyed. They could not verify whether there really was such a unique person in the city. At that moment, Sam started to leave, and the woman asked where he was going. At this time, Jack was in his house. He was happy that the guy dropped 2 orange quality items and equipment. They weren't even on him, and most likely his level didn't allow him to do so. After that, Jack looked at the clown and said that he looked strange, because he didn't even have quality. He hoped there wasn't some ancient god or something hidden there. At that moment, the pendant began to make strange sounds. The monster boss said that if he hadn't reacted so quickly, his kingdom would have been discovered. Jack looked at the pendant with confusion. Seeing the guy's face, the monster immediately ordered to interrupt the connection and not to reveal their position. He was scared to death because he was close to failure. After some time, investigators came to the city hospital. The captain, who was lying completely wrapped in bandages, said that they were saved by a young fighter. As soon as the enemy saw him, the monsters created a crack in the realm and fled. The woman said she had a vague feeling that this man's power was beneath hers. The man clarified that he was talking about a guy who even the strongest of this world could not catch, and was killed by a mysterious someone. The girl said that maybe he was just passing by, or maybe not. The man in the cast said it would be more peaceful if this guy lived here with them. Then the investigator said he had an idea, and he asked if there were any remnants of dark power left in that place. The man suggested that this person might be one of the mutants. These 2 destructive spells resulted in no casualties. The man in the cast said that it was impossible, and that he was going too far. The woman thought about all these words and fell silent. At this time, Jack wanted to complete the task of changing his profession. Going further, he saw the Temple of the Sacred Sun. At the same time, the man was watching the guy. A few days ago, a client came to the master at the exchange. The girl introduced him as Evan. The man greeted him and said that he heard that Evan wanted to buy a 4 transformation fighter set. The girl thought that with such a high level and good looks, the guy was rather wasteful with money. The mechanic said they had an old customer who called to sell this kit. Then Evan asked menacingly where this man was. The master began to say that the guy was busy today and could not be present, but there was excitement on his face. The set included a bib and pants. The guy insisted that the master tell him where that man was. The master thought that this was a very strange coincidence, because as soon as Jack said that he was going to sell the suit, this guy appeared. He said that the guy was going to go to a neighboring town and decided to check by calling. After some time, Evan left, and the girl said that she walked him home. The master sat in confusion, and she asked what had happened. He said he had asked someone to look into Jack's background and found out that the guy wasn't particularly talented. Hearing this, the girl was upset, because she thought he was really cool. She asked the guy where he got the things he was selling, and the man replied that that was the problem. Remembering Evan, the girl clarified that that guy was probably not himself right now. Even though the items weren't stolen, the point is that the guy clearly obtained them illegally. Samantha emphasized that the 4 transformations make experts the best even in the provinces. At this time, the man continued to watch Jack, and did not imagine that such a young guy could resist the invasion of the kingdom. According to him, the master's relic should be with the guy. Even if it's not Jack himself, but someone behind him who has such power, one still needs to be on guard. When the boy started using his powers, Evan assumed he was preparing for battle. The guy looked like a newbie, and the man decided that it was some kind of disguise. Given his age, his disguise as a newcomer might not have been noticed in the crowd. Evan decided to protect himself and mark the guy with his ability. He thought he could easily use Jack's appearance. The boy continued to fight the monsters, and Evan wondered why he just left. Suddenly, Jack was attacked, and he instantly dealt with the monster. This situation greatly shocked the man. The guy realized that Jack had an indestructible absolute defense. The monsters avoided him, and Jack was clearly not an easy person. As Evan approached the final boss, he began to wonder if he would fight him. But why would such a strong person fight a low-ranking boss? Evan was also struck by the fact that the statue tried not to move. There was no assignment for this guy in the manual. Suddenly Jack, entering the room, exclaimed that something must be here. Coming closer, a winged man appeared above him. He started running away quickly, and Jack didn't understand why. Evan was amazed that there was a hidden boss here, and how the guy knew about it. The guy read the notifications from the system about his task. After that, Jack said that this was a high-level task, and if no one was watching him, he could complete it. The boss screamed in fear and did not know where to run. At that moment, the guy stretched out his hand, and lightning appeared in the sky. After this, an eye formed, which burned the hidden boss in a matter of seconds. Evan had never seen such destructive magic, and it scared him. Jack was sad that until he went through his first transformation, his level would not increase. He decided to return with the emblem and complete the mission. He was about to use the teleportation scroll when Evan suddenly called out to him. Jack looked at him in horror, not understanding when he had arrived and whether he had seen everything. The guy realized that this powerful man did not look very happy. He began to ask the gentleman not to be angry, because he could explain everything. Suddenly there was a commotion all around and the boys turned around. Then Jack told the guy that they should get out of there first and then talk. After some time the guy was already talking, and Jack asked if he had followed him the whole way. Then Evan said that he was really sorry and he just wanted to make sure, nothing more. And although his master sacrificed his life, with his power they were able to temporarily seal the kingdom's invasion. Jack was thinking at that moment that this guy had a 4th transformation. If he hadn't revealed himself, he wouldn't have even noticed. Evan, seeing that the guy was silent, became scared and thought that he was planning to silence him. Then he said that he really appreciated that the master had avenged his master. Jack continued to reason that since this guy's level was low, he could establish a relationship with him. He said he didn't want anyone but the guy to know what happened today. Evan began to reason that the guy had dark magic, but he did not harm the innocent and repelled the invasion of the kingdom. The guy realized that since he had nowhere to go, he could stay in the city. Suddenly Jack's phone rang, and when he answered, he heard the teacher's voice. The guy said that he was out of town and was going to be back soon, and then asked what happened. After their short conversation, Jack was surprised that the teacher called him so unexpectedly. The woman asked the teacher about the conversation with Jack. She replied that, judging by the guy's tone, she didn't think anything was wrong. The disciple, who had awakened only a couple of days ago, had achieved his first transformation. It was very scary. The teacher began to say that Jack had a good character, and that he studied hard. After some time, the captain reported that the preliminary situation was such that they continued to monitor everything. Then the commander asked if there would be anything else. At this point, the woman asked if it was possible that the 2 destructive spells in the city were caused by mutants. At that moment, the commander said how a girl could ask such questions, although she herself was a mutant. Such people use dark magic and bear certain costs for it. If a person is not careful, even the most ordinary expenses will lead to an irreversible end. Then one of the guys said that the girl was getting more and more confused, although she was a royal-level mutant. The woman replied that she was simply considering all possible options. Then the guy said that the girl was incompetent and couldn't figure anything out. After that, he also added that if a royal-level mutant really exists, he will cut off his head and let it play with like a ball. At this point, the commander said that they had already sent an investigation team to the city. Hearing this, the woman asked if he trusted her. And then she added that this whole situation is not so simple, and asked to be patient a little longer. Suddenly, a girl from the clan burst into the room and said that she had the latest news. The Temple of Radiance realm in the city was attacked by destructive magic. At that moment, Sarah remembered that Jack was training in this place at that time. The women, hearing this, just shook their heads and clearly believed that the guy was dangerous. After that, she grinned and said that it was getting more and more interesting. After some time, Jack decided to visit a nearby town. He was riding with Evan in the minibus, and no one understood what was going on with the barrier. Then one of the guards said that the barrier had been upgraded to the highest level, and therefore the dark forces would not be able to penetrate inside. Jack thought that the recent unrest had raised alarm at the highest level. At this time, the monsters on the barrier looked down on the people. One of them said that they couldn't get inside. However, another said such barriers would not stop them. The monsters ordered everyone to start the attack and surprise the people. People looked up and did not understand what was happening. The monsters instantly broke through the barrier and began attacking civilians. The guards didn't understand why the monsters were breaking through the barrier. Another asked people not to push, because he had a sword in his hands. Evan told his boss that it might be another high-intensity intrusion, and then he asked if they needed to intervene. Then Jack asked in surprise if the guy had a solution. Evan wondered why his boss was asking him when he could easily handle them himself, and suddenly it dawned on him that this was most likely a test. Then, having adjusted his equipment, he said to leave it to him. Jack at this point thought that there were too many people around and he wouldn't be able to intervene. One of the fighters was shocked that he couldn't even touch the monster. He said that he thought that there would at least be someone strong among the people. The crowd began to panic as a huge monster was heading towards them. As he began his furious attack, he shouted that all people were worthless trash. Suddenly Evan reflected this attack. There was not a drop of excitement on his face. He said that although the boss didn't need his protection, since he was here, he couldn't allow the boss to interfere. Evan said one last time that he would take care of these monsters himself. The monster laughed and said that it turns out that not all of these people are insignificant. The guy with madness in his eyes began his secret attack. People around were surprised by Evan's level of strength and said that the monsters didn't have a chance now. At that very moment, the guy easily dealt with the monster and calmly walked away from the explosion. Jack was admiring this guy's moves at this moment. The monsters decided to strike back, since their leader was defeated. At this point, Evan walked up and asked the boss if he needed to do anything. Jack, with a smile on his face, said that nothing more was required and praised him for his excellent work. The crowd still didn't understand how strong this guy was. Evan said that the loot dropped because of that monster and asked to take it. These were orange-level items. There was also a book of agility, perfect for Karen. As for the shield, Jack decided to sell it later. Suddenly a knight approached them and asked if they could talk to them. Afterwards, the city's mayor himself thanked them for intervening and saving their city. He introduced himself and said that the guys didn't look like locals. Jack replied that they actually came here on business, but now they were stuck here and couldn't leave. And then the guy asked if the mayor had any idea why he was there. The man began to apologize and said that it was their fault and that they had caused the guy's inconvenience. After this, he ordered his workers to bring the scroll to the flight he had just purchased and offer it to the master as an apology. Jack, hearing this, realized that such a thing was a very rare find. The mayor began to ask the gentleman to stay with them for a couple more days because of the recent events. The guy replied that he had a very busy schedule and would not be able to fulfill the man's request. And then again, with a menacing look, he asked if the man thought he had no business of his own. Suddenly, the worker handed the mayor a box and said that the scroll was here. The man handed Jack the mall's top black card as a small token of gratitude. Seeing this, the boy remembered that he had heard that the black card from the shopping mall was only given to select distinguished individuals and granted them various privileges. Evan took the box from Jack, thanking the mayor in the process. The man thought he needed the guy to accept this thing, otherwise he would be judged. He asked the gentleman if they could ask for help from them if the city was in danger again in the future. Then Jack said that there was no problem with that, and he would try to come if he had time. At this moment, everyone began to admire and clap as the gentleman agreed. After some time, the Karen clan was in the transformation hall. They saw the girl come out and were happy. That famous student also came out with her. He asked the girl what happened. Karen replied that she saw two people fly past, and one of them was most likely Jack. The guy asked if this was true, because the flight scroll costs 1,000 crystals. Then the girl looked menacingly at the guy and said that if he said anything bad about Jack again, he would regret it. Then the student wondered why he was always mentioning the guy, and how he was worse than him. The girl from the clan asked how their second task went. Oliver said that he only achieved Class A, and unfortunately could not get the highest class. Frank then said that completing the second transformation at 18 years old was already a supernova, in demand by leading universities. Then Olivia asked Karen what about her. The girl remained silent and was clearly upset about something. Then Olivia told her friend that she looked weird. Oliver thought that even a brilliant girl could have failures. After that, he told her not to be upset and just work harder. Then Karen asked why she would be upset about the A-class if the guy wasn't upset about the A-class. Hearing this, all the clan members were shocked. Olivia asked the girl why she didn't tell her earlier. Karen then replied that she had discovered a hidden class that had never been seen before. Oliver began to be indignant that this was impossible, because her profession is determined when a person awakens. The girl began to remember the process of transformation formation itself. At this point, her old profession changed to another, and began to be called a fast archer. Karen was surprised and didn't understand what was happening, because the interface had changed. After that, she saw the emblem that Jack gave her. Karen realized that the guy seemed very confident as he held it out to her. After that, by clicking on the upgrade, she thanked Jack for the gift. Olivia asked how the girl could make decisions so easily. Oliver said that he had never heard of such a thing, and that the system of changing professions was most likely some kind of mistake. At this point, Karen told him that he shouldn't worry about her problems. The other guild members began to admire the fact that someone with a 5-star job was still improving. It was at that moment that Oliver thought he had to find her, no matter how dangerous it was. Jack was happy that his properties had improved, and passive skills had been added. He said he would have to try them out next time while Evan waited for him. The woman thought that she had already seen this fighter last time, and wondered why he was with Jack. According to intelligence, despite the guy's age, he already has the power of the 4th transformation. However, according to the workers, when the boys entered, he followed Jack and showed respect to him. After this, the woman told Sarah that her student was not so simple. She said that now everything depends only on the teacher. Sarah continued to say that she was sure that the guy would never become their enemy. After some time, Jack and Evan were walking and discussing something interesting. Suddenly, the teacher called out to Jack and he turned around. He was shocked that Sarah appeared so unexpectedly. The guy asked what had happened to cause such abruptness. At this point, Evan said he would wait for the boss in another place. Jack panicked and simply told the teacher not to pay attention, because the guy was joking. Then Sarah asked the guy if he had completed the 1st transformation. Hearing this, the guy was stunned with shock. Although he did not intend to leave his bed, they nevertheless found out about this too quickly. After this, Jack, speechless, replied that everything was just like that. After this, the teacher asked if the boy had ever fallen under the influence of dark magic. Hearing this, Jack asked why the girl was asking such a thing. Then Sarah said that there had been some anomalies recently, and the realm's intrusion into reality was constantly increasing. Then Jack replied that the girl shouldn't worry, because he wasn't a mutant. At that moment, the teacher handed him a stone and said that then he would agree to the test. She explained that the boy needed to channel his power into the crystal, and then it would show how much darkness was in it. Sarah thought Jack seemed indecisive, and it bothered her. Jack, holding out his hand, said that this was the first time he had encountered something like this, and therefore he was a little nervous. As soon as he touched the stone, it instantly shattered into pieces. Sarah was shocked because she didn't think the stone would break. Then Jack asked in bewilderment what was going on. Sarah began to remember how the woman explained to her that this demonic crystal was sensitive to the forces of darkness. If you put force into it, it starts shaking. The more he shakes, the higher the number of dark forces. The teacher didn't understand if anyone could tell what his explosion meant. Jack and Sarah were perplexed by what had happened. Then the guy started saying that he understood that he couldn't believe that he changed his profession immediately after waking up. The woman thought that this child had lost his parents early, and had woken up later than the others. Then she said that she personally trusted the guy, but it was her responsibility to report what happened. At the time, Jack thought it was sad, and didn't know how people would react. Suddenly Sarah said that she had prepared a gift for the guy to congratulate him on his 1st transformation. Then the boy thanked the teacher for taking care of him all these years and also handed over a gift. The woman began to say that the effect, which does not require singing, can save lives at a critical moment. Sarah said that the thing was too valuable and she couldn't accept it. Then Jack said that his friend was waiting. If that was all, then he would probably go. Sarah didn't believe that the guy actually gave her an orange quality item as a gift. After some time, the teacher came to the adventurer's office again. The woman, seeing the stone, was surprised, because she had never encountered such a situation before. The Sarahs were afraid that Jack would now be seen as a threat. At that moment, the woman said to forget about everything and leave this matter. Perhaps her student is beyond their understanding at this point. She also said that there was no point in reporting this yet. At this point, Sarah replied in a slightly anxious voice that she also agreed with this. The woman began to reason that since Jack didn't want to reveal his secrets, they just needed to focus on the martial artist. After some time, Evan told his boss that he seemed a little upset. The guy replied that the teacher had just written to him and said that the investigation into him was closed. Then Evan said that this, on the contrary, should be good news. Jack replied that he was now worried about leveling up in the future. At that moment, the guy thought that he really deserved to be an important person. Even his thoughts were different from ordinary people. Evan suggested that Jack level up in secret realms that are not in the official records. Recently, anomalies have occurred in the world, which have led to the emergence of new kingdoms. Those areas that the authorities do not monitor due to lack of resources are occupied by evil forces. Jack, hearing this, asked the guy if he had any information about such secret kingdoms. Evan replied that he currently had data from 2 kingdoms, but if he needed more, the guy would find it all. Jack then replied that he relied on him and thought it would be better if Evan showed himself in public. The guy also decided to go and sell the loot tomorrow, because it would be a great break. Evan, when he came home, didn't think that he would return from his boss in the evening. The man at the entrance greeted the gentleman. After some time, they were sitting at a table, and he introduced himself as Tom, saying that he was the mayor of a certain city. The man thanked them for their help in the last invasion and fight against the secret kingdom. Evan said he planned to stay in the city for a little while longer and was thanked by the mayor. After that, he handed the guy a special adventurer's ID. In fact, the mayor had already heard that other cities had tried to recruit Evan. Taking the card, the guy thanked them for their concern and accepted the gift. They shook hands, and the man said that such politeness was completely unnecessary. Evan thought that this thing might be useful to the boss, so he decided to keep it. The mayor thought that since the guy had a 4th transformation, the city would be safe with him. He also told Evan not to worry about housing, because he would take care of it right away. At this time, Jack was playing a game and didn't even notice that it was time to sleep. The boy noticed that people were still chatting in the class chat, even though it was late. They all woke up at 16 and want to take the exams for college, which requires 1st transformations and above. Suddenly, the chat started talking about Karen, and the guy wondered if people could see the activity on his account. As the boy continued reading the messages, he thought that teacher Sarah was very interesting. And after one of the pieces of information he read, Jack said that he only had a couple of good days, and there was no need to ruin everything. He remembered that the monsters were thinking about destroying the guy who escaped. Their leader suddenly felt a sense of fear. The next day, Samantha told Abby that she shouldn't come to work until she's fully recovered from her injuries. The girl told her that she was fine and not badly hurt. Samantha then revealed that she had actually come back to climb the career ladder, which alarmed Abby. The girl continued to say that the guy turned out to be a useless thief. At this point, Abby shouted that Mr. Jack was not that kind of person. Then Samantha said that the guy was now being sought by a fighter of the 4th transformation. At that moment, Jack appeared behind her and lightly attacked her, because he could no longer hold back. Samantha started screaming that the guy didn't dare use attack spells and called for security. Abby asked the guy to leave quickly before security arrived. She tried to explain that the mall had a lot of influence, and that ordinary people were better off not getting involved with them. At that moment, the master approached them and asked the guy who allowed him to behave so recklessly. Jack said he heard that the man had been investigating him behind his back, and even called the guy a thief. The master replied that only Jack knew whether he was a thief or not, and then he said that the guy had no right to ask him questions. Then Jack pulled out a black card and asked if this was how they greeted guests of their center. Samantha and the master were shocked when they saw the black card. Jack clarified that this gift from the mayor definitely had some meaning. When the master asked where he got it from, the boy told him to find out for himself. Then the man started calling the mayor, and Samantha didn't know what to do. At this point, the people outside did not understand why the security had blocked the passage. The mayor, answering the master, said that he had been informed that he was looking for information on the map that he had personally given to Mr. Jack. Then the man began to say that there had been a small misunderstanding. The mayor continued to shout into the phone that he was trying hard to win the gentleman's favor, and then he asked how and who allowed the master to offend the guy. After disconnecting, the man did not understand what kind of relationship there was between the mayor and Jack, and why he was so angry. He decided to call that fighter and tell him that his kit had been found. At this time, Abby and Jack were sitting in the break room. Suddenly, the mayor and Evan started running towards them. Then Jack asked in confusion why they were here. Abby, seeing them all, didn't understand why they knew Jack. Samantha was shocked that everyone was looking at her. After that, she saw the gentleman and did not understand what was wrong with him. The mayor at this time asked Jack if he was sure he didn't want them to apologize. After this, he turned to the foreman and the worker and told them to pack their things, because they were fired. The two were in complete shock and didn't know what to do now. At this point, the master started shouting that it was all because of Samantha, and ended up hitting her. The mayor then shouted at the security to take them out. After this, the man began to observe a good relationship between Jack and Abby. The girl thought that at such a young age the guy was already communicating with outstanding people. Suddenly, the mayor told Abby to keep working hard, and then the stock exchange would not hurt her. The girl blushed and said that of course she would try. Jack felt terrible that the mayor had to come all this way because of him. The mayor then asked the boy if he had found anything in the treasure catalog that he liked. Jack then asked if any of them had heard of the final relic. The mayor, puzzled, asked the guy again. Evan, also completely not understanding what was being discussed, asked what the ending was. Then Jack said that he just saw it online yesterday and thought it was something new and interesting. The skill book his teacher gave him is used by mages to temporarily restore mana during battle. The boy wondered what kind of forbidden spells this would become. Taking the book in his hands, the system told Jack that he had a passive skill. The guy had never heard of it before, and there was no description in the system. After that, yawning, Jack said that it didn't matter to him now anyway. When they said goodbye, the mayor said that everything had been in such a hurry today. But the next time the guy came to town, he would receive him personally. After that, the man leaned back and used the flight scroll. Then Jack told Evan that they should go out to eat together. Entering the boy's house, Jack was surprised that it was big. Evan explained that people who have reached the 4th transformation and wish to remain in the city receive special treatment. Jack laughed and said that they would save up money and buy a place nearby so that they could be neighbors. Evan at this point said that if the guy needed money, he had some. Jack, living at this time, thought that he earned some crystals from selling equipment. If he converted them into money, then buying a villa would not be a problem for him. After that, after drinking another glass, Jack told Evan that they needed to rest a little. Evan said that there was a chef on the premises and he had already called him. Suddenly the mayor called him and he was forced to disturb the guy. The mayor said that the investigation team is currently investigating the recent incidents and would like to get some information from the guy. Evan thought that these investigations might influence the boss and decided to find out his opinion first. The mayor then told him to contact him at any free time in the next few days. After that, the guy told Jack everything, and he said that he didn't know what kind of people they were. The city they were in was a ghostly place, and the man smelled the mysterious hero. At the meeting, the girl asked if anyone present had seen the so-called mysterious hero. However, everyone said at once that they had not seen him. Then one of the men asked why there were rumors that this hero saved the city. The woman said that it was mainly because the Hidden Kingdom's invasion remained, and the mutants aiding the invasion were destroyed. The man began to say that the invasion of the Hidden Realm had different levels and dangers. Without a thorough investigation, they could not rely on it. The captain continued to say that 2 more disasters had occurred. The woman, closing her eyes, simply remained silent to all these words. Sarah at that moment thought that in order to protect Jack, she used her powers and changed information that was somehow connected to him. Suddenly, he burst into the office and said that he had called the gentleman, but he said that he was busy today. The captain began to get angry and say that he really hated such adventurers who refused to follow any rules and regulations. He then decided to take charge of the investigation and told the others to focus on other problems. That same evening, the man approached a secret kingdom called the Treacherous Cemetery. The guards blocked his passage. Then the man showed his emblem, and the guys immediately realized that he was from the investigation team. The man said he wanted to go inside to investigate, and security let him in without any problem. When he walked in, he kept saying that this was their first time here, but the scale of the destruction was still impressive. Even the remaining power of darkness is still pure and powerful. The man, as if mad, shouted that this place was very intriguing. Suddenly, a monster's head appeared from one of the holes. The man began to shout that, as expected, this was a king-level threat, and everything around was filled with enormous power. At this time, Jack was sitting in Evan's villa. The guy, not suspecting anything, just sat and played on his phone. Suddenly, he had a feeling as if something had connected through the aura. If he concentrated, the connection would be clearer, so the guy needed to determine the location. At that moment, Evan approached him and asked where the boss was going. Then Jack handed over the phone and asked for help to finish the game and try to lose as few points as possible. While he was riding in a taxi, he looked at the navigator and discovered that this place was most likely near the bloody cemetery. Suddenly, Jack had the feeling that this thing began to move. At this time, the security guards tried to stop the monster, which had gotten involved with the man. The young men were shocked and could not move from horror. The man who contacted the monster asked someone to help him. At that moment, security was prohibiting cars from passing because there was danger ahead. Jack, getting out of the car, looked carefully at the phone. Suddenly he felt that the thing had stopped. The captain was still asking for help and did not know how to get out. The girls from the investigation team were perplexed by what was happening. One of them was seriously injured, and teacher Sarah tried to heal her. She thought that with Jack's gift, she could shorten the singing time and carry out the rescue at the fastest speed. When she woke up, the woman asked where this monster was. Sarah then said that the mayor had already asked Evan for help, but she wasn't sure they would make it in time. Then the woman said that the guy's strength was equal to hers, and he had no chance of defeating this monster alone. However, the person behind him may be their salvation. Jack at this time used his spells and attacked the monster. He didn't know if he should use other forbidden spells to knock him out completely first. Suddenly, the monster started attacking again, and then the guy got completely angry. Feeling the colossal power, the monster was perplexed as to how this was even possible. Suddenly, the system gave Jack a message about the appearance of a new ability, and he immediately extended his hand. The guy realized that close distance was one of the requirements for absorption. Suddenly, all of Jack's properties improved by 100 points. This was unexpected for the guy, and he was very happy. However, it seemed to him that he was able to absorb something else. Suddenly, Evan came up to him and asked what happened here. Then Jack said that he had just come across a monster and destroyed it. Looking at the captain, the boy realized that someone had taken care of him. Evan thought the mayor had just informed him of a monster invasion and wondered who it could be. Then Jack patted the boy on the shoulder and said that he would leave the cleaning to him. After that, the guy disappeared, and Evan was surprised at his speed. The guy knew that the boss lived up to his reputation, and he didn't seem to be judging him. After some time, the captain was in the city prison. All the evidence that he was a monster was true. They said that the boy discovered a monster in a secret kingdom. The woman said he used the investigation as an opportunity to enter the secret realm and absorb the dark forces. The mayor was glad that their city really had a secret hero. Hearing this, the woman Grisha grinned. At this point, the man asked Evan if he had seen the mysterious hero. Then the guy answered in a calm voice that he had met him once. At this point, the teacher and the woman from the investigation were extremely shocked to hear this. The man asked if he could offer anything, and added that if the mysterious hero wanted everything, they would do their best to satisfy all his needs. The guy said that the mysterious hero prefers to remain in the shadows. He rarely appears in public, and you can forget about this idea. The guy remembered their dialogue and how he said that it was good that he and the boss had thought everything through in advance and thrown out this mysterious hero. He thought that there was no evidence anyway, since they couldn't verify it. The man then said that he was sorry, because he had no idea how many people were trying to curry favor with such a powerful figure as the mysterious hero. The guy replied that the mysterious hero had relatives and they were looking after him, so there was no need to worry about it. The lady thought about the guy's words and realized that now everything was clear to her. Sarah wondered if the mysterious hero was older than Jack. At this time, Jack was in his house. The guy, standing in the shower, began to think about the final relic, since these are actually the remains of the murdered Lord of Darkness of the Secret Kingdom. He also continued to think that the images that had surfaced earlier were absorbed fragments of memories of the past of the Lord of Darkness. He didn't understand that since he didn't want to be the ruler of darkness, then why did he need these items? But suddenly it dawned on him that some objects actually seemed useful, and the accumulations of dark power of the Secret Kingdom will gradually strengthen. If time and space cannot withstand the invasion, the end of the world will come. The training of awakened ones in our time is incomplete, due to which very few people are able to achieve the fourth transformation. Then Jack realized that the information obtained from the ruler's memories seemed to be of no good. Fortunately, it was not only our time and space that was invaded by the Secret Kingdom. Others were able to repel their attacks. But in the end, knowledge is now beyond their understanding, and misuse can lead to unforeseen consequences. Jack's thoughts were interrupted by a loud and annoying phone ringing. Karen called the guy, and when he picked up the phone, the guy asked the lady what good news she wanted to share with her friend. Karen said that she was inviting him to dinner that evening, and he had to come. The guy, of course, agreed with her proposal. The lady said that they had agreed then, and now she would send him the location of her whereabouts. The clan members gathered and congratulated Karen on her achievement of the second transformation. Oliver was amazed that she had achieved the second transformation at such an early age. He also added that he had reserved a room at the best restaurant in town and suggested celebrating there. Karen said she had other plans for the evening and wanted to have a good rest and celebrate. Oliver then asked that completing the mission was hard work, and they all needed some rest. Was there really anything that couldn't be postponed? Oliver was then furious that as soon as Karen achieved her second transformation, she had already turned away from everyone. Then Olivia told him not to say that, and Karen probably has good reasons for that. Oliver asked if they were tired of running after her. He added that she not only completed the C-level job change, but also awakened a hidden job. Olivia was then very disappointed by what she heard, as she did not expect such an outcome. Oliver said he was afraid that one day she would leave the team for good. When Jack and Karen met at a restaurant, the guy was surprised by the price of the roast lamb, as it was affordable and its taste was simply incredible. The guy thought that in order to try delicious dishes, he just needed to follow Mrs. Karen. The girl said that she would like to thank Jack for the emblem he gave her, as it helped her a lot. The guy asked if it was the emblem that unlocked the new hidden profession, she says. Then the boy thought that in the memories of the darkness amplifiers, it was obvious that the awakening of our time had not yet revealed its full potential in the conditions of their professions. When Karen asked him if he knew where these emblems were, the guy said that he was not sure about his knowledge. Then the girl became a little sad because if they could be bought, she would want to give them to all the members of her team. Then the guy thought that she doesn't change, and every time something good happens, she doesn't forget about him. The girl said that it didn't matter, and she would find a way to solve the problem with the emblems, and he should continue to level up. Jack said that leveling up alone was quite difficult, and all he needed was her protection. When the guy saw Karen's shocked face, he was surprised himself and asked what happened. The lady said that everything was fine. She just got a little hurt while they were doing the mission. Jack asked if she had received any healing, to which the girl replied that she had, but considering it was a sea-level mission, the damage from the boss was significant, so she would need time to recover. The guy wondered if it was really that hard to complete a sea-level mission. Unexpectedly for them, the guy received a call from an unknown number on his phone. Picking up the phone, Jack asked who was calling him. Then the other end of the line said that he didn't need to know who it was, because he was interested in where he got his emblem. Then the guy put the phone away and Karen asked him what happened. Then the guy replied that someone in a very strange voice asked where he got the emblem from. The girl was shocked by this information and added that she did not tell anyone about it. The guy told her not to worry and suggested that they just continue eating calmly. Then words came from the phone that if he dared to hang up, he would face the consequences. The guy thought that he wouldn't make a scene while Karen was next to him. As he left the restaurant, the guy was pleased that he had eaten well. Then the girl asked him if he was sure she didn't need to walk him home. The guy said no need, it was just some kind of prank. When the guy inserted the key into the lock to enter the house, he saw something shocking. The guy's eyes almost fell out. He was very shocked. He saw a guy with golden hair in front of him. Then Jack asked if this was the guy who called him. Then he smiled slyly and said that he had warned him that if he hung up, he would face consequences. And if he had just answered the question honestly, he would not have had any problems. Jack asked who sent him. Then the guy screamed, saying how dare he speak to him in such a tone. When the guy saw another guy appear from behind Jack and fly at him angrily, he was horrified. He cut the air with his sword. Seeing such a picture, the guy almost lost the power of speech. Then Jack, straightening his shirt, said that it was now his turn to speak. The guy thought how this was possible, since according to the information he received, this guy's level was a 1-star profession. And besides, he's a mage. He was able to defeat a level 3 guy with his bare hands. Then Jack thought that, as expected from improving all properties by plus 100, his reaction and speed had increased significantly. Then the golden-haired guy realized that everything was very bad, and he needed to leave there immediately. But then Jack grabbed his arm and stopped him, saying that first they needed to clean up all the mess they had made. And he added that the cabinet was also broken, and the damage needed to be compensated somehow. Then the almost naked guy stood and said that they had already given him everything they had. Jack told them to tell who sent them. The guy said it was a gentleman from the Sacred Lion Guild. He said he had a unique emblem that couldn't be found anywhere. So he hired us. Then Jack wondered who this guy was who hired these guys. And he added that since he decided to pester him, there was no need to complain later that he would be rude to him. The guy remembered that he had a forbidden spell that he had not yet used. In the team, Karen Oliver talked about how she never showed up, and what was the point of inviting those people. Oliver told his friend that it would be better for him to leave early and rest together in another place. Then the comrade asked what was going on with the emblem, and Oliver said that he had already sent one guy to Jack. If he did not cooperate, he would soon understand what a horror worse than death is. Then the guy asked what to do if Karen finds out. Olivia said she couldn't take it anymore, and asked if he wanted her to forget about them and think only about herself. The guy said that his friend was right, but unfortunately, the change of profession did not go as smoothly as he said. The original plan was to let the boss go, shake Karen's resolve and intimidate her, and then he would reach out to her and heroically save her. The guy said that he didn't think that Karen would go so far as to fight and actually be able to defeat the boss. The guy who appeared to Jack appeared silently and out of nowhere. Oliver asked if he got the information he wanted. Then the golden-haired guy asked about Karen being hurt because of him. Then Oliver slapped him and asked if he dared to interfere in his affairs. Then the guy grabbed them and started to strangle them. The guy said that anyone who harms Karen is not worthy of living in this world. And he added that since he spoke of a fate worse than death, then let him experience it for himself. Jack noted that these people turned to ashes. There was no evidence. The perfect way to erase all traces. But this time the situation was quite dangerous. The boy's house was in a normal area where high-level awakened ones could walk around without hindrance. Jack planned to first use the ruler's memories to sort out some important things. Jack decided that he would pack his things and stay with his friend, since he was on his 4th transformation, and the security in the area of elite villas was much higher. The guy was shocked at how they dared to attack the boss, and what kind of impudence it was. Jack said there was no rush, and what he really wanted to ask was if Evan knew any reliable alchemists. Evan asked what his requirements were for an alchemist. Jack said he was looking for a highly qualified, reliable person, preferably with an independent status, and the simpler the relationship, the better. Evan said that the alchemists he knew were experienced, but they had already become members of a large guild. Jack thought that in the memories he received from the Dark Lord, he once killed several high-level alchemists whose potions exceeded the standards of their world. But as soon as chemists become members of large guilds, they immediately lose control over their actions, and information leaks increase. After this lesson today, I don't want to attract the attention of those greedy flies anymore, Jack thought. Jack asked Evan to help him with this question later when he had time, and added that he would ask other people. Then Jack called his other comrades and began to ask about them, and one of his comrades said that he knew an alchemist. Jack was greatly surprised by this find. Karen spoke to Jack on the phone and said that the brother of their team's priest is an experienced alchemist who was originally going to join their team. Then Jack thought about something. He told Karen that he'd found some recipes at home and needed help studying them. Then Karen asked if he had found something in the house again, and Jack said he was just cleaning up. When he came to the alchemist's house, he greeted him and introduced himself. The alchemist greeted him in return, introduced himself, and asked to show him the recipes. Olivia said she wanted to get along with Jack, but her annoying brother kicked her out. Mark said the ingredients were quite ordinary, but he had never seen this processing method before, and it seemed quite complicated. Jack said it says it increases experience gain by 100%. Mark said that the maximum increase for potions available on the market is 40%, and such potions are quite expensive. Jack said that maybe, but he wasn't sure. It was not very convenient to ask someone about such a thing, so he came to him for advice. Mark asked to wait for him a little, as he would be conducting some experiments upstairs. Then Jack joined Karen and Olivia. When the girls saw him, they asked what happened. Olivia suggested going and seeing what was going on. She said it was the slime her brother used for his experiments. When they went up to her brother, they were shocked by what they saw. Mark shouted with joy that he succeeded and really did it 100%. The girls were shocked and did not understand what was happening. Mark began testing Jack and says that after he drank some of the prepared potion and tested it on the slime, the experience gain actually increased by 100%. Jack thought that this was good, and if this recipe worked, then other recipes were also correct. But Mark was behaving very strangely. Olivia said that her older brother treasured the lab the most, but he never allowed her to leave it, and now he is literally destroying it. The girls of the month cried out asking if the experience had really increased by 100%. Mark told them to be quiet and keep it a secret. Mark asked Jack what he was going to do, and if he decided to sell the potion, he would definitely get rich. Then Jack remained silent and thought about his question. The guy friend came to his senses and asked me to wait, as he needed to look at the messages. Jack said that regarding the potions, he would first give them to his loved ones and then sell them. Then Olivia asked her boss if she was a close person to him. Olivia said that from now on she and Karen would become his bodyguards, and he could use her brother as he wanted and not stand on ceremony with him. Jack thought that if he put such valuable items on the market, he would definitely attract attention. He realized that if he wanted everything to be calm, he first needed to prepare his surroundings and take care of his own strength. And he added that if anyone dares to build something against him, they better think twice. Jack thought about the berserker from Karen's team. Then the girls were delighted and immediately began to smile. Then Jack thought about Sam and remembered that he had good strength and a good relationship with Crom, and that was what he needed. Mark asked if the guy had any other recipes. Mark said he had never heard of most of the material listed there. Jack thought that it was not surprising, since the recipes were from another dimension, and it was already luck that they could at least do something. He said that since they were talking about it, he had a proposal. When the first portion of Experience Potion was ready, they would call their comrade and level up together. Then Karen walked up to Jack and asked if he was with them. Then Jack excitedly asked why they needed him. Mark said that if potions were needed for everyone, he could prepare them by next Monday. And Olivia added that then everything was decided, and they would come on Monday. Then Jack asked the girls if they listened to others. A whole week later that very Monday came. Jack stood on the street and called his comrades, saying that he was already there. Someone on the bus said that there was training today, but Jack didn't come. People on the bus laughed at him and wondered what he was doing there. Someone from the bus told them not to bother with it, and that they should go to bed because they had a long way to go. Upon arrival, the students began to enter the secret kingdom. One of the students asked teacher Sarah when they could come in. The student asked why they had to wait so long, to which the teacher replied that they were in the second grade, and it was good that they were in the first group. One student spotted Jack and asked why he was there. At this time, Jack was with his entire team. The student asked why Jack could enter without waiting in line. The teacher said that Jack is with the Sacred Lion Guild team, so he can go straight to the depths of the secret realm. There are not as many people there as here. The students were furious that Jack would do such a thing. The student decided to ask the teacher if it was she when she spoke about the lady. The guy in line said it was great, and they seemed to have chosen the right place. Then the girl standing next to them suggested they go inside. The student asked who these people were, and why they were acting so arrogantly and impudently, and a student standing next to him asked him how he could not know who these people were. The girl said that these three, like Karen, were new to the government's list of supernovas, and she added, pointing to the girl, that her name was Rose, and she was 4th on the list. That pumped-up guy was Jim, he was 3rd on the list. The girl pointed to the guy and said that his name was Tom. When Jack's team found themselves in the depths of a secret kingdom, he himself was surprised by the potion that he saw. Olivia hit him, telling him to speak more quietly, since he didn't want others to hear him. Sam asked Mark if the potion was expensive. Mark said that this is precisely what makes the potion so valuable, and he thinks no one would turn down the opportunity to improve their skills with such a small cost. He said that this time they would get all the benefits thanks to the boss. Karen thought about the fact that Jack was not very good at socializing, which is why he always had few friends. She remembered him at 16, when his first awakening ended in failure. She also remembered that he was made fun of at school, which made him more withdrawn. She thought it was a rare thing to see him so cheerful, and she hoped he would feel better now. Then, after coughing a little, Karen decided to say something. Karen said that this time they don't have a tank or a damage dealer, so they need to be careful during the battle, and asked Jack not to do anything so as not to attract the attention of the monsters. She said that she was responsible for increasing the monsters, and explained to the others what and how they would need to do. Jack thought that leveling up this way was rather slow, but for the sake of his team, he simply wouldn't interfere. Since it is quick and very easy to level up with forbidden spells anyway, there is no need to rush while he looks at their abilities. Mark was pleased with his actions, as experience was growing very quickly. Olivia and Sam thought they could achieve the second transformation before the entrance exams, and get into the same school as Karen. But suddenly they were interrupted by a sudden noise, and Sam asked who was there. Suddenly Tom appeared and said that he didn't mean to laugh, but he just couldn't help himself. He added that it was funny to hear someone who had not even achieved the second transformation, yet speak so confidently about entering the best university. Olivia wondered if these guys were on the list of supernovas. A guy with a good reputation said that they would be recognized quickly. Sam wondered why they were here if they didn't live near the city. Karen replied that they were leveling up and asked what they needed. Then the guy who was the leader said that they came here specifically to propose to her. Namely, is the girl interested in joining their team? Shocked, Sam and Olivia heard Karen's answer. She firmly said that she already had her own team and refused. The guy mentioned a mage on her team who was ranked 14th on the supernova list. Karen got angry and refused to join the other teams. The menacing man advised her not to rush, because in a small town news can lag behind. Due to the problems with secret kingdoms, universities have changed their grading criteria. Now only elite teams or outstanding individuals can get to them. Although the conditions are favorable, the places are limited. For a girl, this is a great opportunity, because everyone on the list is gathering their teams. Karen can become a strong personality, because everyone on the list is putting together their teams. The guy reminded her that weakness is a sin, causing Karen to become even more angry. He suggested going elsewhere for promotion, ignoring them. Olivia supported this by placing her hand on Karen's shoulder. Jack thought the guy was asking for trouble, since Karen had just awakened to a new profession. One of the guys asked Jack if he was Oliver. Receiving a negative answer, Jim told him to get lost. Sam intervened in the argument, warning Jim not to go too far. Jim asked about the consequences, doubting Sam's ability to help others. The conflict escalated into a fight. Karen asked them to leave on good terms. The attack landed on Sam and he thought he had broken a few ribs. Sam shouted at Jack to leave quickly because he couldn't get involved in a fight. Jim showed the guy again that he was no good for anything. After that, he started attacking Sam. Suddenly, Jack blocked his blow using dark magic. Seeing this, Karen began to worry about the guy and shouted him. However, Jim could not move. He didn't understand how Jack, being a magician, could have such incredible power. At that moment, Jack threw the guy very far away. And then, smiling, he said that Jim is the trash here. The leader ran to his clansmen. At that moment, Karen shot him with her bow and hit the target. The girl and her team were shocked that Mark defeated the berserker with his bare hands, and the archer killed the tank in close combat. Jack said he just wanted to quietly take care of his business, but they forced him to reveal everything. After that, he sighed and said that all this caused a lot of problems. Jack told Olivia not to stand there like a pillar, and to heal Sam immediately. He was curious what Sam was going to do with that guy. Suddenly, he noticed that his guildmates began to treat him with more respect. Jack told Sam to take all of that guy's gear as compensation. The leader shouted that this was a robbery and they would not dare to do such a thing. Hearing this, Jack instantly appeared next to the guy and prepared to strike. The leader immediately changed his tone and said that he had some good equipment that they could take. After this, Jack noted that he did not like problems and hoped that the leader would not take revenge. Suddenly, a girl from the team called Jack boss and said that Olivia had all her gear. The guy, hearing this, noted that they were very intelligent. Jack said that now they should go level up. A few minutes later, Karen admitted that she had planned to help the guy with the upgrade, but he turned out to be strong. Jack laughed and said that he had recently awakened and could not show his power in public. Karen replied that if the guy didn't want to talk about it, she wouldn't ask. The guy said with a smile that the girl still understands him better than anyone else. Karen punched him in the shoulder and said she was happy for him. Sam and Olivia started asking which university and guild the boss was going to apply to. They added that such a strong magician should not rush into decisions or worry about exams. Jack thought that if he went to university, there was a risk of revealing his secrets, and decided that he did not have to go. Thinking about this, the guy shouted that they should move on and speed up the pumping. He thought that although he couldn't use forbidden spells, the bonuses and passive skills were enough for equipment. After some time, Jack returned and Evan greeted him with a smile. The guy thought that after several days of hard work, he had only risen one level and was tired. For a common person with a one-star profession, it is easier to enter a regular university than to kill low-level monsters every day. After thinking about this, Jack decided to rest at home for a few days. Suddenly, Ebby called and said that there was an auction planned with good items. She said that the master was replaced by Tom. When Jack said he was not busy, Ebby said they would be there soon with a catalog of auction items. The guy thought that the service was good, and the new master treated people better. After a while, Tom greeted Jack and told him about his position. When the guy extended his hand to introduce himself, the master asked him to take care of him. The man said he had been ordered to treat Jack in the best possible way, and it would be great if the whole center revolved around him. After this, Tom asked Ebby to show the auction catalog to Jack. The guy looked through the catalog and thought that he didn't need all this equipment and potions. Seeing how quickly he turned the pages, the master realized that he had underestimated the master's skill, and his plan had failed. Jack froze in bewilderment at what he saw. The master noted the boy's insight and pointed out the right thing. It was the newest experience potion, increasing experience gain by 100%. Remembering the conversation with Olivia's brother, Jack thought. Evan started to say something to the boss, but fell silent. Jack aggressively asked Master Tom where they got this thing. The man excitedly replied that the item was provided by the Azure Edge Guild for auction. This guild was one of the top 7 elite guilds and possessed incredible strength. Jack asked where they got this potion from. The master spoke of a new type of secret kingdom that only one person can explore. Evan, when he first heard about this, thought about the possible anomaly of the secret realms. Jack thought about the cruel test of the gods. Suddenly the system gave a task for this kingdom, surprising the guy. Jack was pleased with the first task from the system, feeling something special in it. He declined to participate in the auction, thanking the master for his concern. The master was surprised that the bottles of experience did not interest the guy, because they were considered the best items at the auction. Evan suggested looking for information about the secret kingdom while the boss was talking. Jack decided to go with him, and they sat down at the computer, thinking of using the special ID. The guy started looking for information, and Jack looked at the laptop with curiosity. The picture showed a mysterious building that looked like a tower. The Azure Edge Guild had a special right of registration, which meant permission to govern itself independently. Jack understood that this was a typical special secret kingdom of powerful guilds, but the task had already been issued, and it needed to be completed. Otherwise, he would be eliminated. Deciding to go to the mysterious realm of testing that very evening, Jack was surprised to see guards on duty at this late hour. The Azure Edge Guild had published a lot of information about the secret trial realm, which helped the boy study it better. Heading quickly towards the building, Jack tried to enter. However, before he could enter, there was an instant powerful explosion. The explosion was so loud that the residents of the houses reported it to the head of the guild. Through the portal, Jack began to fly back to his apartment. His face was covered in blood and he didn't understand what had happened. As he approached the entrance to the secret realm, a powerful energy burst out from him, destroying the earthen defensive shield. Jack didn't understand how this was possible and what to do about it. Even the system was damaged, and the guy couldn't figure out what kind of research skill this was. The healer informed the chief that the guards were merely stunned, not damaged. The guard woke up and was surprised to see the boss. The head of the Azure Edge Guild, Sam, asked menacingly what happened. The guard told of an unexpected explosion upon entering the secret realm of the test. The man clarified that nothing like this had ever happened before, and asked if changes could have occurred within the kingdom. The girl suggested using something to test it, remembering the special seal that allowed them to record what was happening inside the kingdom from the outside. They began to watch the recording. The man's face darkened in shock when he saw a clear dark silhouette on the recording. There was a clear silhouette visible on the recording, and Sam couldn't figure out what it was. At that moment, a menacing man, who clearly possessed a light power, told the god of evil that he had no right to invade his territory. These words greatly surprised Sam and his assistant. The recording showed the man was annoyed that the devil had managed to escape again. Everyone present at the secret kingdom was shocked by what they saw and heard. That same day, a council met to discuss how the image recorded by the Azure Edge Guild was the first confirmation of the existence of the gods. The identity of this god was unknown, but it seemed that his spells reached the legendary level of forbidden spells. One of the men noted that, according to the leader, passing the tests could bring recognition and blessings from the gods. The main problem was that even the forbidden level of spells could not destroy the evil god, which was terrible news for all the guilds. The Full Moon Guild leader noted that if the evil god intended to destroy the world, they would not be able to stop him. Everyone present tried to find a way to defeat the god of evil, and made various guesses. Suddenly, one of the girls suggested the idea of passing the tests and receiving the blessing of the gods, which pleased the man from the Flame Guild. Sam thought that everyone present had long been aiming to pass the secret kingdom of the test and wanted to take advantage of this opportunity through him. He warned that the monsters inside the secret trial realm were too powerful for their current strength. In the end, it was decided that they did not have enough experience to receive the blessing of the gods. One of the men decided to ask Brad's opinion. Brad asked furiously what ideas he might have. The man then explained that he had been called back because of a serious incident. Brad started shouting that his student had reported an urban anomaly, which had been ignored, and an investigation team had been sent. The men asked him to calm down as his head was on fire again. One of the girls said she heard about his announcement of resignation due to the rising cost of using the powers of darkness. The man asked Brad to personally ask his student to show the footage to the mysterious hero. He noted that in gratitude he would send 2 cases of excellent wine. Brad's head began to cool down and the man gradually calmed down. At this time, Jack was lying on the bed and thinking about the fact that he had not managed to complete the previous task, and a new one had already appeared. As the name suggests, the task was easy, and even the damage system was not worried. The guy couldn't understand what happened last night, and where he went wrong. Leaving the room, he was surprised by the guests who had arrived and were humbly waiting for him in the hall. When Brad saw Jack, he asked him if he was mistaken about his identity. The guy said hello and asked who his guests were. Jack learned that the man was the former boss of Lone Shadow and was now the director of Adventurer Management. Standing next to him was his student, the current head of the Lone Shadow in this province. The boy realized that the man was the god of death of the Scarlet Flame, and was shocked by this. Brad just smiled sweetly and said it wasn't worth his attention. The old gentleman had countless achievements, and had participated in the development of many large secret realms. The man extended his hand to Jack and politely said that, unfortunately, he had not prepared anything for their first meeting. Suddenly the guy saw that 5 million crystals appeared in his account, and was very surprised. After this, Jack asked why Brad decided to visit him. The man's student said they would like to ask the mystery hero to watch the video. Jack was extremely surprised to see himself and realized that he was now the god of evil. He didn't understand how he could become the god of evil, even though he was an ordinary high school student and a good guy. The thoughts in his head began to mix, and Jack began to blame himself. After that, the guy decided that no one knew about his essence as the god of evil, so he needed to remain calm and not reveal himself. Then Jack calmly said that he would immediately send the video to the mysterious hero and immediately report any news. Suddenly the guy remembered that this girl was responsible for the reception on the day he changed his profession. Now that he thought about it, Jack wasn't surprised that he had been discovered so quickly. At this time, Brad walked and told his student that he was right and that Jack was a calm and polite person, and their task was to attract him to their ranks. The girl asked the man if he thought Jack and the mysterious hero were the same person. The man, turning slightly with a downcast look, asked coldly if it really mattered. Brad believed that if Jack wanted to be seen as an ordinary student, then he would be one, because it would be better for everyone. The enemies became stronger and stronger, and people could still only dream of the blessing of the gods, because they lacked even experience. Jack reflected that the research that had damaged his system yesterday was supposed to be tracking his location. It destroyed Jack's absolute defense in one blow, meaning that he too had reached the forbidden level of spells. The guy had 2 priority tasks now, and restoring the system came first in order to hide from God's detection. Jack decided to ask Evan if Brad had provided any additional information and began to analyze it. It was written there that the internal structure of the trial realm resembled a tower divided into many floors, and the strength of the monsters was very high. Jack still didn't quite understand how the secret kingdom worked, and he began to think about whether it was possible to delegate the task to someone else, since it did not require personal presence. The guy asked Evan with interest if he watched the girl go through the levels. He then asked how many levels Evan could have completed if he had been in her place. The guy thought for a bit and said that it was probably about 35 floors. At that moment, Jack decided that he would be at peace if Evan was the one to take part in the test. He realized that he should prepare a special training for the guy and make him very strong. After some time, a terrifying scream was heard in Brad's office. The man was shocked that the mysterious hero wanted to send someone to the Azure Edge Guild to participate in the trial. The girl said the boy also asked to use their gym, claiming he wanted to undergo intensive training. At that moment, Brad remembered Evan, who had not yet reached the 5th transformation. Now things were getting a lot more interesting, and Brad was getting more and more involved in the matter. He said that yesterday, the heads of the families of the major guilds decided to challenge the trial realm, and were defeated. The girl was very surprised that even the strongest in the country could not receive the blessing of the gods. At this point, Brad screamed in anger, and said that this was why he was so interested in the outcome of Evan's test. After this, he noticed that his head was burning again and tried to calm down as quickly as possible. The flame was the price that the master continually paid throughout his life. The girl was worried that there really was no way to make it easier, no matter how hard she tried to find a way out. And so Jack and his assistant Evan came to the training room. The people there were surprised by the 4th and 5th transformations, because the city had never seen anything like it before. The man remembered that he had said nasty things about Jack in the past, and was glad that he had not offended him then. Otherwise everything could have ended badly. At this time, the girl explained to Evan that the training room could simulate various combat situations, if enough information was provided. Then the guy handed the girl a flash drive and said that all the detailed information about the training was on it. When she opened the folder, she was very surprised at how accurately everything was labeled, including the weaknesses of the monsters. Jack mused that the ruler had once visited this secret kingdom, so he simply needed to extract all the information from the memories. Brad asked Evan if he would mind if they watched him, to which the guy replied that it would be an honor. The man said it was just training and added that he wanted to learn something. With a stern look, Brad asked if the mysterious hero had ever mentioned that the god of evil would actually destroy the world. Hearing this, his student turned towards them with excitement. The boy remembered that when they were at Evan's villa, the boy asked if the evil god would really destroy the world. Jack thought the guy was good at revealing people, since he was asking the god of evil directly. Evan was one of his men, but he still couldn't tell him everything, and Jack was confused. After that, the guy told Brad that he asked his boss the same question, and he answered him in 6 words. The man asked the boy what he would answer. Then Evan said that Jack had firmly replied that as long as he was here, that would definitely not happen. Brad smiled and said calmly that the words were restrained and commanding, which suited the guy's style. The girl did not understand what kind of power the hero possessed if he did not take God seriously. Jack was glad at this moment that he was smart enough. Brad shook Evan's hand and said the next test was his. After some time, the guy was already in the training room and was trying his best to repel the attacks. The monsters attacked him in a crowd, their eyes burning with anger, and Evan looked at them in bewilderment. At that moment, Jack asked through the microphone if the guy wanted to take a break. Evan replied that everything was fine and he needed to rest a little before trying a couple more times. The girl, watching this fight, said that these monsters had already exceeded the limits of the 4th transformation, and she definitely would not have been able to pass this test. According to Brad, Jack woke up at 18, but it only took him a couple of days to complete the 1st transformation, which means a miracle should happen to Evan. Jack realized that he had underestimated the situation, thinking that knowing the monster's weakness, he could pass the test, but forgot that people have limits, just like equipment. If Evan can pass the test, then the guy will eventually have to pass it himself. At this point, the boy turned to the man and said that it was time for him to go, as school would start next week, and he needed to get ready. Jack knew he needed to level up as quickly as possible before school started again. As he walked down the street, the boy thought it would be nice to get a powerful skill or equipment to equip his assistant with. Jack decided that the best way to remain undetected was with a flight scroll. He asked the trading exchange to help him acquire a batch that would definitely last for some time. With the help of this scroll, he quickly found one of the secret kingdoms. It was one of the 2 wild secret kingdoms Evan spoke of, and it was definitely not under government control now. However, it seemed to him that there were traces of a recent battle here, so he decided that first he needed to go in and then decide what to do. At this moment, on the other side of the portal, a man asked his boss if he saw a beam of light. Edgar replied that this was just another attempt to destroy them. Everyone began to rejoice, because they thought that ordinary people were simply asking for death. Edgar said that thanks to them, their great lord had accumulated enough strength, and today was the day of their venerable lord's event. They have been waiting for this day for a long time, and it has finally come. At this time, The girl asked about the coming of the Demon Lord. The boys told her that the mutants told them that there would be an invasion in the secret kingdom in the mountains today. First of all, the invasion was a day away from the nearest city, and therefore he was in danger. The captain said that the entire 4th squad had been wiped out, and even if they went there, they wouldn't be able to stop the secret kingdom's invasion. The monsters in this secret kingdom are terrifying. The city's magical barrier definitely can't stop them, so people can just try to hold them back. The captain ordered everyone to return immediately, and inform the authorities about the urgent evacuation, in order to have time to evacuate as many people as possible. They didn't have any surveillance equipment, so they wouldn't be able to know the exact time of the invasion. One of the guys asked how they could leave the captain alone, but the man shouted not to waste time and go faster. Looking at the sky, he didn't understand why everything was happening today. After this, the man called his child and warned him that there might be a drill today, and the boy should not worry. With a completely downcast look, he told the child that he was currently busy at work, and suggested that they talk later, after which he hung up. Suddenly the boy called him back and persistently asked why his dad had hung up, since he hadn't had time to say what he wanted. The child congratulated the man on his birthday, and the captain burst into tears because he understood that he would die today. At the same moment, there was an intense outbreak of the forces of darkness, which signified the invasion of the secret kingdom. The squad could not calm down, because the captain was at this very point. At this time, Jack was making his way through the entrance to the secret kingdom. The monster boss shouted that the great demon lord was bestowing his favor upon them. Here the guy was already walking through the secret kingdom, with sparkling crystals around him. Jack was glad that the kingdom had quite generous experience points for monsters, and he was able to level up to 37 in one go. The guy began to carefully choose which skill he would learn this time. Suddenly, right in front of him, the monsters knelt down on one knee and began to greet the demon lord. Jack started screaming in horror, asking what was going on here. At that moment, the leader of the monsters shouted, "Where is the demon lord?" and looked at the guy in horror. A ruler appeared from the crystal, sadly saying that he was already frozen. The boss began to reason that since the guy didn't recognize them, he was clearly neither the incarnation of the demon lord, nor any kind of guardian. The monster decided that Jack was an ordinary opportunist who wanted to bring allegiance to the demon lord, but was afraid of the powerful forces of darkness, and ran away. He shouted at the boy, asking if he had come here to swear allegiance to the demon lord. Jack calmly replied that it was not so, and it was none of their business what he did there. The monster said that it was very arrogant of him, and then asked if the guy knew who he was. He introduced himself as Alex, a wanted criminal who had killed over 200 people. At that moment, Jack's eyes lit up and he called the monster closer. Alex was horrified that the guy was seeking his own death, and became even more angry. Everyone started cheering for the leader to kill the guy, and as soon as possible. Suddenly the kingdom became dark, and everyone began to wonder in bewilderment why this happened so suddenly. The leader didn't understand what was going on at all, and they all looked up in horror. Jack, his eyes full of fury, told them to let him demonstrate the forbidden spell he had just discovered. He began to read every single one of the monster's weaknesses. The guy was very surprised by this, because all the weaknesses were described in great detail. In the illusion, he would voluntarily attack the weaknesses of those who were trapped, like a devil playing with helpless prey. However, Jack believed that this grueling skill was rather perverted, and that a use could be found for it. At this time, the captain thought to get up and check what was happening there, because, despite the fact that a lot of time had passed, there was no sign of the invasion of the secret kingdom in the mountains. He understood that it was okay if something unexpected happened. In any case, he would not be able to avoid it. After some time, having risen to the secret kingdom, the man screamed, because he did not understand what was happening there. The wanted criminal Alex and his subordinates were completely defeated. 4 teams of adventurers sacrificed themselves to track him down, and in the end, the monsters simply died. Upon entering the secret kingdom, the captain began to say that it looked as if a huge ice storm had hit it, because there was not a single living monster there. Then the assistant began to wonder what had happened to the boss of the kingdom, and everyone continued to worry. Suddenly, in bewilderment, he began to say that he was frozen, but they needed to make sure that he was dead. There were no items or experience points near him, so the man thought that he was probably already dead. Then the boy asked if the invasion was still happening if the boss was already dead. The captain continued to look at the monster in bewilderment and think about what to do. After some time, Jack asked Evan if he was still in the training room. The guy sadly replied that he was stuck at level 45, his skills were not enough. Jack then said that he originally wanted the boy to understand the situation in the secret realm of the test, so next week he would organize a special demonic training for him. Evan, with tears in his eyes, was glad that his boss was not disappointed in him after all. He immediately asked what Jack wanted for dinner and decided to order food right away. While they were waiting for food, the guy decided to play a little and take a rest. Suddenly, he received a message from Mr. Brad, which surprised the guy very much. After reading this message, Jack thought that the gentleman had been hacked, because she didn't understand how a man could write something like that. Then Brad sent a voice message and said that it was really him, offering to play together. Jack believed that at first glance the gentleman might seem serious, but he also had such hobbies. After that, the guy started recording voice messages to the man about how he didn't think he was so good at games. The man then said that he used to play with his grandson all the time, but now he is busy preparing for entrance exams, so he doesn't play so much anymore. Jack told him that they should definitely play again next time, as soon as they had the opportunity. The guy thought that the man was a very decent person and had a very high status. Brad began recording a voice message stating that the top 3 universities were soon planning to hold a supernova training camp to select the best students. At this point, Jack began to think that being forced to face the so-called gods in the future without any combat training might put him at a disadvantage. The guy then decided he wanted to participate, and the man said he would save both spots for him. So if the guy knew anyone, they could apply too. After the conversation, the man approached the photograph and, turning to his grandson, said that he and Jack had a lot in common. They might even have been able to become good friends if they had met. Sometime later, in one of the city's schools, students were discussing the latest news. This year, not only the best, but even ordinary universities have increased their requirements for combat specialties. The students were angry that the 3-star students were no different from people weaker than them. Suddenly, the teacher asked everyone to pay attention to her and announced a new student in the class. A girl appeared in front of them and introduced herself as Lena. Seeing her, Jack remembered that she was one of those with whom he had problems in the Secret Kingdom. Everyone was surprised and asked the teacher why the girl, occupying 4th place on the state list of supernovas, decided to transfer to such a small school. At this point, Lena asked the teacher if she could sit next to Jack. The teacher awkwardly agreed and was extremely surprised. The boys in the class immediately turned to Jack and began to get angry that all the beauties in the class were going to him. At this time, there was an argument in the principal's office about the fact that one of the best girls had transferred to their school. The girl not only left, but also took away a place in the training hall, which could have greatly affected the school's rating. Another man thought the girl could give them an extra spot in the training camp. He was not surprised that the director had come all this way to accuse him, and only grinned maliciously. Suddenly they heard a knock on the door and, suddenly falling silent, turned towards the door. The director gave the man behind the door permission to enter in a stern voice. An assistant appeared in front of them and said that a certain person wanted to see the director, as he had not been able to reach him by phone. This surprised the men, because the director's phone was on silent mode due to an ongoing meeting. As they walked further, they were shocked to see Mr. Brad from the Adventurer Management Bureau. Having calmed down, the director shook the man's hand and greeted him. The director was worried because Brad was one of those famous personalities you only see on TV. Suddenly a guy appeared from behind, who turned out to be the man's grandson, and also greeted the director. The man, worried, asked how he could help such an important gentleman. Brad said he had 2 requests, one of which was to transfer his grandson to their school. This greatly shocked the director and his assistant. As far as he remembered, his grandson was ranked 12th on the government's list of supernovas and had the dark profession of a blood knight. Having calmed down, the director asked why the gentleman had chosen such a mediocre school, despite having places in the training camp. Brad replied that their agency had 2 spots at the training camp, and they wanted to allocate them to students from that school. After these words, the man turned pale with shock, because in such a backward province there could only be 3 or 4 places. At this point, the man with whom they were having a meeting said that he was very busy and did not dare to detain him. After this, the assistant escorted the director, and he and Brad went into the office. The man began to ask if he meant to say that these 2 seats were allocated for Jack from the 3rd class. Brad replied that it was a bureau order, and there was no need to ask so many questions. The director still had questions about Jack's connection to the Adventurer Management Bureau, and what wonderful future awaited him. At this time, Jack was sitting at his desk, and did not understand how it happened that 3 of his friends ended up in this particular class. Olivia started saying that she heard that the school had approached a big guy, but he had turned it down, so she got his spot. After that, another guy said that he had heard about Jack and asked him to take care of the others. Lena realized that she was not the only one who attracted Jack's attention, and she would have to work harder to earn her boss's respect. She had prepared a gift for him, and was looking for an opportunity to give it to him. The rest of the kids in the class were surprised that Jack had such a good relationship with the group of supernovas. Seeing this, the guy realized that the class had become lively and smiled sarcastically. No one noticed that the guy was missing or said anything about his refusal. At this time he was at home. The assistant asked if it was time to inform the police, since there was no news about the young gentleman yet. The man replied that he had already appointed an experienced specialist to investigate the case, and they only had to wait a little longer. The assistant also said that he had requested an extension of the young master's vacation, citing the need for additional training. After this, the man said that he would go to his son's room and asked not to disturb him with trifles. He looked at the photographs and thought about his child. Brad's grandson was telling Jack at this time that he had received a skill book some time ago and offered to look at it. Jack was surprised because there was a summoning spell, which was a rare profession, and it was difficult to get such a skill book. At that moment, Lena held out the gift and, embarrassed, said that she wanted to give it first. The ball contained the skill of combat magic, which was also considered a rare profession. Jack knew he couldn't study those skill books at the moment. The system told him that teams of 5 were needed to enter the realm and begin the trials. Due to lack of information, the guy wasted his time and was unable to unlock new skill slots. Then Jack thanked the guys with a smile, but said that he had nothing to offer in return. After that, he handed over 40 bottles of high-level experience potion and asked everyone to take half of it. Seeing this, the girl thought that this was an exclusive treasure of the Azure Guild, reserved for the elite members. The potion was very valuable at auction, hard to come by. But now Jack was giving away 40 bottles as if it was nothing. Lena and Brad's grandson simultaneously realized that they needed to hold on tightly to such an influential figure. At that moment, Karen looked out from behind Jack and said that she had a gift for him too. She reported that Olivia's brother had made a new potion and asked her to give it to Jack. After some time, Jack was already at home and said that all the students of the training camp could set their own schedule, and since nothing much was happening at school, he left early. Evan thought that the boss had talked about a special demonic training, but hadn't mentioned it again until today, and he was afraid that he had forgotten. At that moment, Jack handed the new potion to the guy and said that it was for him. After explaining what it was, the guy added that it needed to be drunk, and then a special demonic training session could begin. Evan jumped up and beamed with happiness, saying that he really appreciated it and thanked him for his efforts. The boy began to greedily drink the potion without thinking. After this, he felt warmth throughout his body, and the places where there had previously been discomfort became more relaxed. At that moment, Jack thought that this was indeed an excellent potion, because last time he was attacked by a forbidden spell and left several hidden wounds, but after one bottle he was almost completely healed. After that, the guy told the assistant that it was time for demonic training and asked him not to be nervous, but just follow his instructions. Jack also asked Evan that as soon as he realized that he could no longer hold on, he should tell him right away. The guy noticed that the effect of the nutritional potions slightly reduced Evan's strength. Jack warned Evan that he would start by listing his weaknesses and then give him training. After that, he began to list all the shortcomings and weaknesses, and Evan listened to him attentively. The guy was surprised that the boss had such keen eyesight and could see all his problems. After this, Evan got ready and shouted for them to start the special training. The guy fought for a very long time and overcame almost all the blows. After some time, Jack asked if he could still fight, but Evan insisted that he could hold out. Jack recalled that thanks to his past enemies, he was well acquainted with the use of the skill, so he could prevent any injuries to the assistant. Evan thought that in this world the boss was the only one who would help him become better, and he would not let him down. After that, the guy got ready for the fight again and shouted for them to add enemies. And now the last monster has appeared on the training ground. Evan easily cut it in half and landed on his feet. With a smile on his face, the guy told them that he had to move on to the next level immediately. The girl, perplexed, said that there was no next level, because the data they sent about the monsters had already ended. Then Evan fell to the ground and cried, telling his boss that he had done it. Brad was in complete shock, because training the 4th transformation to such a level in just half a month was a real miracle. Suddenly he noticed that his head was on fire again, which only made the man even more angry. The girl began to worry about the gentleman's health, but Brad said that reaching his age would be a stroke of luck for the future mutant. She kept thinking that he had actually already thought about passing on his legacy when he sent his grandson to school in the city. The girl decided to ask if there was any way to reduce the price of the dark forces. Brad looked down and remained silent, not saying a word. After that, the man said that they would discuss it later, and first he needed to send Evan to the secret realm of the test. After some time, a man from the guild of an influential house greeted Evan and said that the head of the influential guild family was with him. The guy thought that all the chapters were already at or close to the 5th transformation, and in the past, even the master couldn't gather them all together. The only one who was completely calm before the gods was his boss. At this time, one of the guild leaders, who had just reached the 5th transformation, did not understand why such a grand welcome was given to someone at the 4th transformation level. He also thought that all these heads were using his secret kingdom to get closer and establish connections. After this, the man approached Evan and said that everyone wanted to admire his strength, Evan, without once looking at the man, replied that he didn't mind showing them the recordings. All the heads looked at the small screen of the phone and were shocked by what they saw. They thought about how to take advantage of the opportunity to appear on camera and meet the mysterious hero. At this time, Jack was sitting in Evan's villa. The guy listened to everything the heads and their assistant were talking about. As he continued watching the video, the man shouted out that he had incredible skills and that his speed was several times greater than his own. Evan was even able to go beyond the level that the leader was able to reach. They eventually watched the video to the end and saw that the tests had been successful. The men couldn't believe that such a young guy had actually pulled it off. It turned out that the recognition and blessing of the gods was a forbidden spell, and now everyone knew it. The guild leader immediately began to think that this was his secret kingdom, and the first pass reward should rightfully be his. Evan saw that the profession of an artist was not perfect enough to learn the forbidden spell. At this point, the man frowned slightly and asked what this meant. Jack remembered at that moment that it had once been shown that the professions in their world had not yet reached their optimal form. Evan replied that his weapon was a dagger, and he needed to choose the sword of the holy martial spirit. Suddenly, one of the leaders shouted to everyone to turn around and see what was happening behind them. Something strange was happening in the sky above, and everything was illuminated by a bright light. It turned out that words appeared out of nowhere in the sky, and everyone in the city started filming it. It turned out that people in other places also saw this message about the peace level increasing by 1 point. Evan began to walk out of the kingdom, and everyone immediately turned to look at him. The man thought that his power had exceeded the limitations of the fourth transformation, and perhaps because of his existence, the entire world's power system would be reversed. Everyone immediately began to offer the gentleman to join their guild, and talked about favorable conditions. After listening to all the suggestions, Evan said that he was not considering joining the guild at this time. The guy just hoped that he hadn't disappointed his boss, but Jack was only happy about the whole situation. After that, the guy started saying that he was able to get a good look at one emblem on his phone and started to draw it on a piece of paper. It turned out to be a divine emblem, and Evan's drawing almost exactly matched what was depicted. The assistant asked if the boss knew about these emblems, and then Jack said that he got one when he was going through the dungeons and gave it to Karen. Evan thought that the boss was giving away divine artifacts very easily, and he was still too far from the boss. Jack was at this point thinking that because he also had divine power, he could create emblems, and wondered if this was true. Besides, there was another point that bothered him, which seemed more important. He wondered if it was possible that he would face threats from all 12 gods. Evan said at this time that the 7 major guilds had already begun to search for more mysterious trial realms to obtain the divine emblem. Jack also thought that the system had recorded that the tests were complete, which meant that as long as he controlled the person undergoing the tests, he could use him for his own purposes. The divine emblem wasn't that big of a problem. What was more important was that after passing the trial realm, someone might obtain a forbidden spell. And if this leads to the gods revealing his existence, then that will cause even more problems. Jack wondered if it would be possible to make it so that only his people would undergo the tests, and he knew that it would not be easy. Suddenly, Evan remembered something, and decided to immediately ask his boss if he had done the right thing. The guy started to tell that when he was in the Azure Edge Guild, one of the leaders approached him. He began to say that according to the contract, the master's rewards that he received in the secret trial realm needed to be returned to their guild. Then Evan asked for forgiveness, since he had already swallowed the divine emblem and handed over the remaining items. Suddenly the chief began to shout for the guy to give up the divine emblem, or he would not leave this place. After some time, everyone looked at the orange-quality items and high-quality stones in surprise. The guild leader also handed them the recipe for a forgetfulness potion. This potion can erase a certain skill, making its slot available again. And since leveling up is not easy, skill slots are very valuable. Therefore, this potion, like a high-quality experience potion, can change the world. The man then approached Evan and asked him to contractually keep the recipe confidential and not disclose it to others. Then the guy said that he had seen this recipe before at his boss's, and it was exactly the same, which meant that even if the guy didn't reveal it, the boss could make the potion. Then the leader said that they had conducted an investigation and found that all the rewards from the first pass of the secret trial realm were unique, and they had no records. Hearing this, Evan just closed his eyes and remained silent. Then the man asked sarcastically if he had anything to say to the guy and laughed at him. Then Evan said that he had no authority to prove anything for the boss, but if they were talking about evidence, then he had something to bring. The guy said that the boss actually also knows the recipe for their high-quality experience potion and has already prepared it. Hearing this, the man turned pale with shock and did not understand how this was possible. Everyone was shocked that the mysterious hero actually knew that they were inside the secret realm of the test. Brad couldn't help but laugh, and when asked what he was laughing at, The man was called an old fool because he said he just remembered something funny. In fact, Brad recalled that Jack simply gave away the experience bottles and did not take them seriously. Suddenly, Evan interrupted his thoughts and said that if that was all, then he would go. And the man said that he would return with him. He also asked if the mysterious hero had any other potions, as his body was affected by the power of darkness. However, he would like to live a couple more years to spend more time with his grandson. Evan said he could check this information for him, and Brad thanked the guy profusely. When the boy finished his story, he apologized to Jack for making his own decision. As for Mr. Brad, the guy really wanted to help him, but he wasn't sure that some kind of nutritional potion would help him. Jack then ordered his assistant to find time to bring the master a couple of bottles of the nourishing potion for him to try. After some time, Evan was already asking the girl if the gentleman was there, but he had left for an important meeting. The girl asked in surprise where the gentleman's grandson was, since he had just moved to the city and had not yet met anyone. The girl realized that she would have to come back tomorrow, so she turned away and walked towards the exit. However, dark magic was coming out from under the door and looked very terrifying. The guy in the room was squatting and exposed to this magic, trying to protect himself. The monsters in his head said that if the boy wanted to save his grandfather, he should just obey him. The boy replied that he could not betray humanity and make a deal with a demon, since he was Brad's grandson. At that moment, the monster said that when his grandfather died before his eyes, the guy's answer would be different, and so the next day he sat alone on the playground. Suddenly Jack came up to him and asked if Hank was feeling okay. After that, he invited him to play a couple of games to lift his spirits. Hank sweetly replied that his grandfather wouldn't let him play at school and apologized. Jack replied that when his grandfather returned, they should definitely play a few rounds together. Suddenly Hank said sadly that his grandfather had learned to play just for him. When he was a child, his parents were killed on a mission, and it was a huge blow to him. So the boy became very withdrawn and constantly locked himself in his room. The grandfather did not know how to console him, and remembered that the boy used to love playing competitive games, so he secretly learned to play them. During Hank's hardest times, it was his grandfather who was always there and helped him get back on his feet, so he is incredibly grateful to him. After this, the guy asked Jack for forgiveness for suddenly dumping personal problems on the guy. At this time, Brad was introduced to a third transformation guy, who was arrested 8 years ago for intentionally causing bodily harm in a secret kingdom. Also in the photograph was another man with a third transformation who mysteriously disappeared from his home 5 years ago. A few days ago, these two suddenly appeared in the area of a house in the city and brutally killed 2 adventurers and their families, leaving no one alive. The 2 killed were adventurers from the team that had once captured one of the boys, and it seems that this was their motive. The documents said that these 2 adventurers were 4th transformation experts and could not lose to the 3rd transformation. One of the men added that one of the cameras in the house recorded their fight. The boys defended themselves with all their might, but for some reason the man who had disappeared from his home 5 years ago was stronger. All these moments greatly surprised everyone sitting at this table. That guy had powers that surpassed the 4th transformation level. Brad even said that if he had to fight him, he would most likely lose too. At this time, the man who had lost his son was staring blankly into space and was nervous. After this, he said that these men had done a good job, and then asked if they had found anything. Then one of them said that they still had not found the location of their son. However, while they were looking for him, the man felt an incredibly powerful force of darkness. This made the customer very wary, and he, frightened by the look, asked what it meant. After that, the man asked if he knew that only the chosen ones could use the powers of darkness, having been blessed by the demon lord. However, the true chosen ones are called and trained personally by the ruler. The man also explained that he was talking about the fact that when they disappeared from the outside world, they were trained in the secret realm for a long time. In the end, he said that the situation with the customer's son was similar to theirs. So he believed that perhaps he had also attracted the attention of the demon lord and received a chance to train in the secret realm. The man, with even greater fear, said that he only knew that the boy was performing some kind of ritual, and then he asked if it was somehow connected. The gentleman then said he was not sure, but decided to check the dark room his son used for the ritual. The man happily said that he knew this would happen. Suddenly the gentleman handed over a business card and said that after dinner they needed to go by car to this place. Then the man asked in bewilderment if they were looking for someone there. Then the men, looking at him angrily, said that they wanted to visit someone. One of them began to tell the master that his son and daughter-in-law had sacrificed their lives to close the uncontrolled passage to the secret kingdom. After some time, Hank heard a knock on the door and went to open it. He saw 2 healthy men in front of him and politely asked whom they would like to see. Then one of them asked menacingly if he was Hank. And then he suggested talking inside, pointing his finger at the guy's room. These 2 seemed strange to Hank. as they had a dangerous aura about them, and he asked who they were. The man replied that they were here on behalf of the owner, and from now on he should call them older brothers. Hearing this, Hank's heart began to beat faster, and he remembered last night. One of the men asked if Hank was supposed to meet his owner last night. The guy began to clearly see this terrible silhouette, and could no longer control himself. Having collected all the equipment, Hank began to behave aggressively and threaten them. However, the man grabbed the boy's head with the first blow. After that, he asked how the boy dared to attack his older brother, because it was incredibly rude. Hank continued to scream that they didn't understand what they were talking about and tried to break free. However, the man continued to squeeze the boy's head, and blood began to flow from his mouth. He also added that the owner ordered him to help Hank make sure that it was worth learning from him. The owner had high hopes for the boy, and planned to give him great power and even save his family. Hank only replied with insolence that he could only dream of it. Another man suddenly came out and said that Mr. Brad was not at home because he checked inside. With the last of his strength, the boy continued to scream for them not to touch his grandfather. He heard that if you sacrifice someone close to you, you can gain more powerful dark power. Hank should have agreed, because if he didn't, the men would have to help him. They also warned that in 3 days the day of his grandfather's death would come, and it was necessary to resolve everything quickly. The guy started to think that this photo would make a great photo for a monument. At this time, Jack was in a secret kingdom called the Wild Tribe. He explored it and destroyed everything in his path. When the guy finished, he was upset that he had not found a suitable place to level up, and therefore he would have to accumulate experience only in ordinary secret realms. Suddenly the system gave him a task, and Jack said that if things continued like this, he would have to protect the nearest secret kingdoms in order to complete the task. Suddenly the guy got a call from his assistant who said that Mr. Brad asked him to ask the boss about something. Jack noticed that his voice was somewhat hesitant, and realized that it was something complicated. Then Evan said that the master would like to become the disciple of the mysterious hero. After some time, Jack was already in the second city hospital. Hank thanked him for taking the time to visit the boy. Jack, however, asked with interest how his brother was feeling. Hank replied that his body was fine, but they needed to check if the dark force was out of control, and so he would stay here for now. He also said that this was a special room for mutants, and he had never seen it before. Outside the door, Brad was already talking to Evan, and saying that the two men were very dangerous to society, and was asking the hero for help in the near future. Then Evan said that this was not personal training, but an opportunity to help the man train, because in the end he prefers a peaceful life, and does not want evil people to go unpunished. The guy also added that the boss needs an independent space for training, not very big, but modest and secret. Suddenly Mr. Brad saw some people and started screaming in horror, asking what they were doing here. At that moment, Mr. Brad suddenly began to run towards his grandson's room. The men said that because they were too rough that day, their little brother ended up in the hospital. At that moment, a man caught up with them and started shouting for them to turn around. His head instantly lit up, and Brad was filled with an unquenchable rage. The man turned around and said mockingly that the gentleman would not fight him in such a place. Brad remained silent to these words, because it really was so. Then the man said that it was time for them to go, and reminded the master's grandson that he had 2 days left to think about it. After that, they started to leave the room, and Evan looked at them very suspiciously. Seeing this, the men just grinned, and the guy began to worry about what had happened. Suddenly Brad came up to him and started asking for forgiveness, to which Evan said that it was not his fault. At this time, Jack was asking his new friend if he wanted some fruit. They looked fresh and very appetizing, so the guy didn't want them to go to waste. At this time, the man started talking about the fact that the daughter of one of the family is quite small. Then his friends said that they wanted to use it as an offering, and if he was interested, he could take it. They started laughing loudly when suddenly there was a terrible explosion. From the portal that began to appear after the explosion, Jack and his assistant Evan appeared. The man suddenly jumped up and started shouting about who they were and what they had forgotten. Evan began to speak in a calm voice, telling everyone except the two men to leave immediately. Hearing this, they looked at each other and said that those guys really came for them. At that moment, one of them suddenly took the bottle in his hands and began to finish his drink. Another one rushed to attack Evan, but he calmly repelled his attacks. He thought that the man's strength definitely surpassed the 5th transformation, and if it weren't for the boss's special training, this man would have killed him instantly. The enemy was thinking that it was impossible for this little guy to easily block his attack. Suddenly, Jack appeared right behind Evan, and the man realized that he only needed to block him for a second, so that the mage behind him could take the opportunity to attack. This made him very angry, and the man thought angrily that they clearly would not be able to win with such tactics. However, Jack landed and began to try the snacks that were on the table. Evan, without wasting any time, began to attack the man and tell him that he shouldn't get distracted. Then he became very angry and with madness in his eyes began to fly towards Evan. At that moment, the girls, with fear in their eyes, did not understand what to do, because there was no way they could escape. Jack at that moment only said that the melon seeds he tried were surprisingly not bad. A man in terrifying gear was walking towards him. He didn't understand how a battle mage could be so strong. At that very moment, a new blow flew at him, and the man noticed it in a matter of seconds. He immediately thought that the guy's technique was not particularly impressive, and that he seemed like an amateur with almost no experience. However, the men thought that the guy was doing this on purpose, and there must be some kind of plan behind it. Jack pulled out his weapon and prepared for battle with a furious look. The man knew that something was wrong, and as they fought he became stronger and stronger. He was taken aback but sharply told the guy to wait. After this, the man said that they could sit down and discuss everything, because they were both strong, and there was no need to fight to the death. Jack closed his eyes and said that he had only one goal. He needed to kill him and stay alive. The man started shouting at the boy not to be so arrogant, because in the eyes of his master, he was just a worthless ant. Then Jack asked if his master was the demon lord of the secret realm. Hearing this, the men said that his master's powers were beyond what ordinary people could imagine, and that countless rulers of kingdoms had fallen at his hands. And also, that the greatest pleasure of its owner is making exquisite jewelry from the remains of powerful enemies. Jack said that the male master had destroyed many demon lords and clarified some of his words. After that, with a smile on his face, the guy sarcastically asked where all this was. At this time, Mr. Brad's assistant said that the battle was taking place on the top floor, which is the property of the corporation. The man began to use a research spell and launched the ball specifically to this floor. However, the ball showed that it was completely clear there, and there was not even a hint of any battle. The boy noticed that this was indeed the young man he had been thinking about, and he understood that he was having a hard time. And the other masked man seemed to be using some form of camouflage technique with his magical energy. Suddenly, something happened between the warring parties that led to an increase in the quality. Brad thought about how incredible it was. All the guy's movements were simple, but his skills were enough to suppress the opponent. Something incomprehensible, strange and very large appeared in front of the guy. The monster thought he couldn't believe he was forced to use this. Brad was shocked by what happened, because he never expected it. Simon asked if they were worried about their partner being swallowed by a monster. Evan replied that he had no need to worry about his boss, but suddenly he waved his sword and said that Simon had nothing to worry about either. Suddenly Simon screamed in surprise and sharp pain. The man who was hiding suddenly jumped out and said that the gentleman was so outstanding and no one could compare to him. The bridge was very angry and called the enemy a worthless person. He walked straight towards the enemy and said that he had already completed the transformation. Now he could eat a couple more of his enemies without even thinking. At this point, Mr. Brad was panicking and saying that they had been exposed. Inside that horrible monster was Jack, and he was finally able to get out of there. The guy realized that he was still too little familiar with real combat, and it took a lot of time. At this moment, another man called out to his brother, but he was hiding behind his back. As soon as the girls saw the way to the exit, they immediately rushed to run. At this point, Jack asked the man not to die yet. He needed him to answer his questions. At this time, something was happening in the secret kingdom in the Valley of the Bloody Fog. The man bowed to the master and said that an ill-wisher had been discovered at the entrance to the secret kingdom. Hearing this, the boss told everyone to retreat, because a possible enemy had come here for him. The men's spiritual vessels were destroyed, meaning they were both dead. The only thing that was last displayed was Jack asking where their master was. The boss understood that this enemy was able to kill 2 men, so the rest of his subordinates were definitely not his rivals. The master walked and thought that his subordinates were loyal to him, but they relied solely on his strength, and only people could independently raise their level and provide him with sacrifice. He began to pull out one of the skulls on his chest, and it began to glow an amber color. Many years ago, when he was an ordinary demon lord, he came across this advanced relic, which gave him great power. With its help, the monster repeatedly convinced his enemies and made them his trophies. At this time, Jack entered the secret kingdom and said that because of the swirling fog, he could not see where he was going. Besides, the guy hadn't met a single monster yet and didn't understand what kind of real fight we could talk about. Suddenly, a notification about the final relic popped up in front of the guy. Jack began to reason that, judging by the traces of the aura, he needed to go in a straight direction. After some time, the guy found this relic in the hand of a black statue. It was obvious to him that there was only one relic here, but he didn't understand what about the promised countless number. Having taken this relic, the guy improved all properties by 100 points, and now, even without using any skills, he can trample the vast majority of adventurers. The guy also exceeded level 40 and can now learn new skills. At that moment, he took out a book of spells and began to study it. It contained a forbidden summoning spell, but Jack doubted it could produce something like a great demon lord. In the end, the guy decided to study him first and then look at his abilities. It turned out that this book was intended precisely for world conquest. The guy wondered when this might come in handy, and he also remembered that he had to deal with 2 men for safety reasons. He knew they wouldn't be able to find any more information, so he thanked the now dead men. At this time, Mr. Brad told Evan that the mysterious hero saved their families' lives, and the man simply did not know how to thank them. At that moment, the girl thought that the masters had shown favor to the mysterious hero, which suppressed her doubts. In fact, the country is also interested in this, and everyone heard that the hero needed a place to train. Brad, upon learning this, said that they had dedicated carefully designed training facilities that offered excellent facilities and equipment. Evan thought that the training the boss talked about was just a cover to hide his true training methods, and decided to give the boss the information to choose for himself. They arrived at the training base. Jack was amazed by its size. Evan explained that this was a new adventurer base that was not yet in use, and the gentleman offered to hand it over to Jack. The building had 10 floors, where the interior space was divided into training areas, offices, recreation areas, and living quarters. The infrastructure included a full range of innovative control systems. Jack could have lived here for almost 2 years. Jack knew that this place was ideal for developing his powers and influence. Brad was sure that the boss would choose this base because the hero saved the city twice, and the authorities were ready to support him. Jack was surprised that people were friendly to him and gave him such a large base. Evan suggested that he be given control of the base since the boss didn't like to deal with such things. Brad mentioned the possibility of creating a guild. However, Evan asked about receiving information without creating it. Brad explained that for a national-level hero, special information channels could be set up that would be synchronized with the Bureau, with the exception of top-secret information. Jack realized that information feeds would work more efficiently than their previous data mining methods. Creating a guild required too much attention. After the conversation, Evan and Jack walked Brad out, and the assistant informed the gentleman about a special training session scheduled for the following week. The man's phone rang. A voice on the phone reported mysterious disappearances similar to the situation with the men. The girl decided to take precautions, fearing a repetition. The man discussed how without a boss it was impossible to resist the enemies alone. Brad was sad that there was no way to cultivate strong personalities. After some time, Brad met his grandson, who happily announced his return. Seeing the things in the suitcase, Brad asked where the guy was going. The guy told about the imminent start of the Supernova training camp, where Jack had put together a program of special intensive training. Brad was surprised to learn that there would be about 6 people at the base. His head flared with anger because he didn't know that others would be studying there. The men tried to calm down, but controlling the forces of darkness was difficult. He explained that these people were only close friends who had known Jack for a long time. After this, Brad calmed down and offered to help pack things. After some time, all the friends arrived at the training base. Karen noticed that the place Jack had spoken of turned out to be a forest. Suddenly, guys appeared in front of them, joyfully greeting the girls. Jim, who came with them, also greeted the guys. As they walked inside, Olivia was surprised by the size of the place, noting that even the base of the 7 main ones couldn't compare to this. Karen asked Jack how he found this place. The guy replied that the owner was his relative, who allowed him to borrow the base. The girl thought that Jack had never mentioned him, and since the moment he woke up, the guy had become more and more mysterious. Evan came out and announced that he would be in charge of their training. Everyone greeted the gentleman with a little awkwardness. Jim asked if he knew the gentleman who seemed nervous. Evan explained that something inexplicable had recently appeared in the sky, and it turned out that the master had completed the test of the gods. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Evan got the feeling that everyone was suddenly motivated. Jack thought that the forbidden spell was disguised as the effects of the training rooms, so there was no need to worry about it being detected. Instead of creating a guild, the guys decided to focus on training strong individuals. During training, Karen noticed a terribly oppressive atmosphere that seemed real. She thought that if it wasn't for special training, it would definitely lead to the collapse of her will. Jim and Olivia didn't think they were supernovas, so they couldn't even dream of surpassing the abilities of others. Brad's grandson reasoned that he could not rely on his grandfather's protection, and wanted to protect his loved ones himself. No one could express Olivia's thoughts, because nothing was important to him. Jack watched everyone and said that he was impressed by everyone's results. After the training, everyone said they felt like they had been tortured for hundreds of years. Evan announced the end of the training and asked everyone to rest. And so, after some time, they were already sitting at the table and eating. At the table, Karen said that today's results surpassed what they had done in the last few years. The grandson thought about the power of darkness in his body, which was behaving strangely today. Jack noticed his agitated state and asked what was wrong. Karen explained that they have been under a lot of pressure lately. Jack decided to see what they were saying about them on the forum. They saw different users asking about the school, and also noticed an account that refutes every post that criticizes them. When they logged into the account, they saw a girl who had come to them because of Jack. They were surprised that the girl wrote all these messages during the day. Olivia tearfully asked people to stop reading the comments, because when she got a place at the boot camp, she was terribly nervous for fear of embarrassing her boss. Jack told them to focus on training, and in a few days they would receive gifts from him. At this point, Karen was very angry at the guy, but he continued to smile. After dinner, Jack sat on his bed, and it was clear from his face that something was bothering him. He thought that in the memories of the demon lord he had raised last time, he had found information about himself as an evil god. There are a total of 7 evil gods born from darkness, worshipped by the monsters of the secret realms. There is also a famous all-powerful god of law, who was once one of the 12 major gods. Along with the other 11 gods, he led his followers to destroy the 7 true gods of evil. Suddenly freed from the threat of darkness, the almighty god of law became obsessed with studying the power of darkness, which eventually consumed him. This legend has been passed down throughout the world, and all people believe in it without any doubt. He claims that, freed from the threat of darkness, the followers of the gods gradually lost their sense of fear, and their faith weakened, and they no longer relied on these gods. Then the gods began to pit their followers against each other, using them as tools for entertainment and sacrifices. Only the almighty god of law had a calm disposition and did not participate in these games. Unexpectedly, one day the fire of war spread to the followers of the almighty god of law, who, due to the lack of protection, were destroyed. The angry almighty god of law asked the gods to stop this, but was only ridiculed by them. The almighty god of law, who had been peaceful before those events, displayed his mighty power in the battle, and 2 of the gods were killed and 6 were wounded. No one knew where the almighty god of law had disappeared to, and rumors had it that he had entered an unknown realm where there was neither light nor darkness, and had disappeared there without a trace. It was incredible, because he was able to fight against 11 gods alone. That was where the information in Jack's memory ended. But unfortunately, the boy still didn't know what happened to the almighty god of law. It was very convenient that the legal department could receive information from all over the country. Jack started studying the experience points from the little monsters, and said that they weren't as bad as they seemed. After that, he encountered the boss of the secret kingdom in iron armor. The guy realized that his actual damage was not that high, and his weapons were worse than those of the adventurers. Jack really didn't think about the fact that his weapon wouldn't stand up to long, continuous battles. He was finally brought down by the powerful boss of the secret kingdom. From level 43, he only leveled up to 47, and he didn't get many experience points from this boss. He got a new skill and decided to study the wind blade. The guy understood that the more forbidden spells, the better. Otherwise, he was constantly worried about the lack of firepower. He also understood that he needed to go to the neighboring city, and just in case, stock up on new weapons. And now the girl was already telling him that the stand displayed all the orange quality swords that were available in the shopping center. There were only 8 of them, which greatly upset the guy. He eventually decided to take all the swords, and the girl was amazed because he looked very young. Suddenly there was a knock on the door, and the girl allowed them to enter. The employee asked the lady for help, but she said that she was currently serving a guest. Jack started saying that they both had black cards, and she didn't understand why he was the priority. The girl began to worry that if a conflict arose between the local rich people, she would lose her position as a manager. Suddenly a guy entered the room and to his surprise saw Jack. Jack, calmly sipping his tea, asked who this stranger was. The guy remembered with horror how he took all his equipment, although Jack himself no longer remembered who he was. A smile appeared on Jack's face. He didn't expect to meet the guy here. The former leader reflected on the fact that he had previously sent people to find out about Jack. However, they constantly encountered inexplicable resistance. Suddenly, Jack asked the guy if he had the sword he liked. The guy replied that he was just taking a walk and wasn't going to buy anything. Everyone present was surprised, because this guy was ranked 2nd on the government's list of supernovas, and he seemed completely unconcerned about those around him. After greeting Jack goodbye, the guy left. In the toilet, he could not contain his indignation. He needed to do something, otherwise anger would consume him. The guy took the phone and started frantically searching for something. Seeing a familiar account, he became even more angry. Now he has definitely decided to pass the tests of the secret kingdom and take revenge on Jack. Meanwhile, the girl said goodbye to Jack, wishing him a good journey. Leaving the building, the guy sighed heavily. After some time, he began to fight monsters again, gaining experience. Having reached level 60, he realized that he was ready for the second transformation. The boy realized that without the use of forbidden spells, this path would have taken much longer. In ancient times, monsters worshipped various gods of evil until they were destroyed by the 12 main gods. Now these monsters systematically penetrate the human world, seeking to restore the power of the 7 true gods of evil. However, the so-called main gods, contrary to expectations, do not stand up for humanity, but on the contrary, fight against Jack. The boy realized that the ancient legend about the almighty god of law might be true. Unfortunately, there was nothing comforting about this situation. Having suddenly received a message from his brother, he decided to grab everything he needed along the way. At this time, a group of students were training in the training room. The girl reported that her brother had indeed set up a laboratory at the base, much to the admiration of the guy standing next to him. She took the jar that interested her, intending to drink the contents. Olivia's brother explained that he had just finished making a forgetting potion that could completely erase one of her skills. Karen asked if this referred to the gift that was discussed earlier. Jack replied that the gift was related to the potion, but was something else. After the guy's detailed explanation, everyone present was shocked. Jack listed the orange quality skills: Shadowless Arrow for archers, Binding Healing for priestesses, Giant Strength for berserkers, and Heavy Barrier for shield bearers. Jim was shocked as he held the orange skill in his hands, since the only skills available in the shops were the purple ones he had encountered before. Karen inquired about the origin of this skill. She added that orange skills are obtained from the secret realm, and asked about the difficulty there. Jack smiled and asked his comrades why they were frozen like statues. With only a week left before the start of training camp, everyone needed to hurry to learn new skills. Grandpa Brad and Evan were walking towards the teenagers. When they appeared, the whole company felt a slight surprise. The girl reflected that despite the weeks of lessons with Grandpa Brad, it was still a great honor for them to meet such a significant figure. Grandpa Brad was surprised to see them and wondered if they were Jack's friends. Jack thought that after the past week, it would be good to have Brad present at this training. Brad asked about training. Jack offered to go with them to the training room and watch them practice. Everyone demonstrated their skills in turn. Brad noted that the skills were excellent, but seemed unpolished, to which Evan responded that they had not fully mastered the orange skills yet. The grandfather, stunned, turned to the boy and asked him again about his skills. Evan confirmed that these skills were obtained from high-level secret realms. Grandpa Brad thought about the fact that the authorities have been trying to figure out how to pass high-level kingdoms for a long time, but so far without success. Brad asked Evan if he could report this to the authorities, to which Evan replied that he had no secrets from the authorities. Grandfather thought that the level of these children was not so high, but over time they would be able to increase it. In complete silence on the street, there was a hall for changing professions. There Jack greeted Brad's assistant. She was surprised by his presence and could not utter a word. Jack just smiled and said nothing more. The girl thought about his presence and envied him, as she expected it. After the greeting, when the guy walked into another room, he was surprised by the 20 transformation stones. Jack mused that stones were not dropped by monsters, but could only be collected from crystals in ore veins, making them incredibly rare. Sometime later, Jack arrived at the city's trading exchange. One of the sellers noted that the number of people changing professions has increased, and there are fewer transformation stones, and asked to wait a couple of days to get them. Jack decided that 3 days was not so much, and in the meantime he would work on the emblem assignment. He told the seller that he had a lot of different unnecessary items, and this time he would entrust them to him. At that moment, the guy took stones out of his pockets and poured them onto the ground. The salesman recoiled in shock and stepped back. Then he thought about Jack's words about how these items were unnecessary for him, and he added that it was not for nothing that the mayor said to serve Jack properly. At this time, a boss battle was taking place in the Secret Kingdom. The salesman said he needed to consult with his superiors. In the Secret Kingdom, during the battle, the captain's assistant ran up to him and called him. The captain's mate reported that some guy wanted to enter the Secret Kingdom, to which the captain objected that this was impossible. But then the assistant showed the captain a special permit. The captain immediately went to let the guy with the pass through and thanked him for his cooperation. As Jack passed, the captain asked who the guy was and noted that the pass was for him. The assistant then suggested that he might be a special inspector. When the captain looked at the assistant menacingly, the boy said he was just joking. The captain told everyone to act as if he really was an inspector, and ordered them to check if everything was in order. As he walked, Jack thought it was a good thing he had asked for a special pass to be made for him. With a menacing look, Jack began to open the portal. Looking up, he thought it was quite high up there. When he looked down, he saw a hidden boss. Without thinking twice, he decided to get it over with quickly. Then the monster greeted him and asked if he was a god, to which Jack looked at him questioningly, as he did not understand what was happening. Then the monster said that although he could not see, he felt and guessed that Jack was a god. Then Jack thought about what exactly the monster wanted to convey to him, and asked himself if he really had the traits of an evil god. Jack asked why the monster thought so, to which he replied that he could explain everything, Their tribe was attacked by other followers and suffered heavy losses, and he himself was killed in battle with the enemy. The monster continued to talk about how he somehow ended up in this place, and a strange whisper arose in his head, which was like a cruel mental torture, awakening in him an uncontrollable desire to kill. Jack thought he remembered that the followers of the Almighty God of Law were more attacked and thought, "Is it possible that Your Excellency God is another title of the Almighty God of Law?" Then the monster asked if Jack had come to save him. Jack didn't know what to answer and said he wasn't sure. The guy thought the monster looked very disappointed. Jack then apologized and said that maybe he was not the one the monster was talking about, adding that he was just a student who was sent on a mission to kill the monster, to which the monster was very disappointed. But he perked up after rethinking it and asked again if Jack was there to put the monster out of its misery. Then Jack said hesitantly that he was not sure and he did not know what happened to him, but it seemed that the monster had lost its memory, to which the monster replied that, however, he did not admit that he was mistaken. And even if Jack was not His Excellency God, Jack was still someone who was very close to him. And he added, "The great master of all laws, the respected Almighty God of Law." Jack was very surprised, as he didn't expect to be called that. The guy said that in that case his profession really is omnipotent by law, to which the monster replied that he knew it and could not be mistaken. Asked if there was a way to get the elemental emblem without killing the monster, to which he apologized and said that he didn't know. But if Jack was worried about killing, then he shouldn't be, since it would be a relief for the monster. After these words, Jack felt a little sad, and he asked the monster if he had a dying wish, to which the monster replied that he had not seen God for so long, and if he could talk to him a little longer, he would die without any regrets. Jack agreed to these terms. Jack asked the monster to tell him about his past. After the husband told him about his past, Jack said that this didn't sound like a god, to which the monster simply laughed. He asked if Jack could tell him what was going on with them now. After a long conversation, the monster stood up and said that the time had come. He was glad to talk to him. Jack said that if the monster ever gave him a chance, he would teach him how to play. The monster said that it was a promise, just like when he visited them in the mortal world. After the boy turned into a monster, he was very upset. The time had come, and a large group of people had gathered to discuss something important. One of those present said that it turned out that the higher secret realms did indeed have higher level skills, but with their current strength, they would not be able to go against them. Grandpa Brad said that in that case, could they hire a mysterious hero to help them all pass through the higher secret realms? Then the grandfather said that he asked, but the mysterious hero was not interested in such cooperation. Brad asked if the mysterious hero shouldn't be with everyone in times like these, to which his comrade replied that he would soon be retiring, and that the director would be transferred to him, and then he would have to use any methods to control the mysterious hero. Then one of the men at the meeting stood up and said that after the secret heroes appeared, he and his family began to be threatened. But at that moment, everyone said that they could not do anything in this situation, and then he was ready to die. But in the end, the mysterious hero helped him. The man added that only a grandfather could say something like that, but still, everyone knows his character very well and understands that there is not a drop of selfishness in him. Then the man asked again that he had heard that his grandfather was preparing to pass through the secret kingdom in a couple of days. After the grandfather said that everything was correct, the man asked to give him a place on his team. At that moment, everyone began to raise their hands, offering their candidacy for the expedition into the secret kingdom. Brad said that the special magic training was really unbearable, and his second bones needed 2 days to recover. The man thought to himself that even if this old man had no selfish motives, any thought he had was instantly reflected on his face. At this time, something strange was happening in the profession change room. In the career change hall, Jack received a passive skill, immunity to any detection skills. Then the boy thought about the fact that the memories he got from the final religion were mostly true, and the Almighty God of Law was not a god of evil at all, but simply wanted to live according to his preferences, just like him. A comrade told him that his feelings were identical to those of the Almighty God of Law. Could it be because of the system? But then, what is the connection between the system and the Almighty God of Law? Jack didn't understand why a man who had been dead for a long time had become the hidden boss of a secret kingdom. The training camp brought together the most outstanding young adventurers from all over the country at the high school and university level. There are 180 participants in the senior division, among which are 32 5-star participants from the supernova list, and 148 4-star participants selected from different regions. The group gathered there were talking among themselves, and one of them noted that this event had attracted the attention of not only the Recs at the top 3 universities, but also the teachers of the 7 major guilds and the Adventurer Management Bureau. The scale of this event was truly incredible. His comrade said he wanted to impress these authorities, but there were so many participants that he doubted they would remember someone like him. As all these authorities walked, a confident Tom approached them. The girls discussed among themselves that they had heard that ever since Tom had awakened, he had never teamed up with his peers, and had only ever been accompanied by the elite members of his family's guild. The one who passed through this kingdom was a fighter of the same profession as Tom. Suddenly, someone poked them and told them to look where he was pointing, because that was where the team from Middle School 7 was coming out. The guys asked their friend if this was the team that everyone was talking about on the forum, and added that it was interesting to see what they were like. Everyone started talking about them, and someone said that they had a strong aura and looked like a very difficult team. When this team got off their bus, they didn't expect everyone to be looking at them. But it was expected because it was known to make them a target. Jack had no idea what was going on. Thought to myself that he seemed to have interested a lot of people there. A man from the crowd said that this man's level was so high that he couldn't even explore it. Even Grandpa was surprised that he couldn't see Jack's level. Everyone was surprised by his presence, since his level cannot be higher than the main one. Tom couldn't hide his irritation as he watched everyone's attention instantly turn to Jack. He remembered studying the recording of the Master's passage through the secret realm, and Tom tried to repeat it many times with the elite members of the family guild. But the Master's power exceeded all expectations. The grandfather asked his friend if he was going to explore his abilities. Everyone noticed how warmly Brad greeted Jack. Comrade Brad noted that such attention was too noticeable, to which Brad only chuckled. At registration, it was announced that team leaders should gather their participants for sequential registration. The registration officer informed that after registration was completed, the leaders would be given an overview of the organizational aspects of the training camp. One of the women noted significant changes in the secret realms in recent years. The man asked the director why they were hiding information about Jack. The man recalled how the principal tried to find out something about the transferred student, but strong protection prevented him from getting the information. The registration officer noted the school's prestige, which was able to attract outstanding talent. All participants underwent special training before arriving at the camp. He thought that there was no need to worry about some of the participants, since they were on the list of the most promising. After Jack saw that all attention was on him, he smiled slyly. The woman at the registration desk said that this year the training camp was following a method of freely forming teams of 5 participants each. She also added that the official start of the training camp will be preliminary tests in a special secret kingdom. Then one of the participants, seeing something incomprehensible, was very shocked. After that, everyone noticed it, and one of the participants said that it was not surprising. After this, an entrance to a secret kingdom opened in the wall. One guy said that maybe we should take it easy and not put too much pressure on the younger members. His friend told him that there were many famous people coming to this training camp, so it was a great opportunity to prove himself. The commander interrupted them, saying that it was time to go inside. A thick, toxic fog awaited them inside, but the team that entered first did not give up and began to solve this problem. Then the people who remained in the registration hall saw and were amazed at their speed. They paid a lot of attention to how he keeps up with the others. It's hard to even tell that he's probably just a high school student, but not everyone was amazed by this. Some, on the contrary, discussed it. Brad was talking to his assistant about what he heard, that these guys had been training together lately with good preparation. They would soon be ready to go through the highest secrets of the kingdom. But at this time, the children who entered first were already fighting with the elite monsters. After the battle, they did not rest and continued to move forward. But at this time, Tom decided to prove himself stronger than the others. The team captain noted that such a result should have been expected from the best team. A man approached the guy and asked if it was Jack. A girl who introduced herself as the mayor's niece approached Jack. The 2 girls standing behind her said that she was one of the 5 Spades team. The mayor's niece, Suzanne, said her uncle often mentioned Jack, and she decided to say hello to him in person. People around her were surprised that Suzanne was communicating with a high school student. Karen approached Jack and he introduced her to Suzanne. The girl suggested that if the team needed anything at training camp, they should contact her and she would help arrange it. Suzanne thought to herself that her uncle often talked about Jake, but was not sure of his strength. After the conversation, she left, and a guy approached her with an offer to find a place to relax. When the girl approached, the guy asked Tom what interesting things were happening. He expressed a desire to stay and observe. The man kindly agreed, allowing the boy to stay with them. When 6 teams enter the secret kingdom at the same time, they are given corresponding assessment tasks. The man at the reception noted that this secret kingdom was too difficult for high school students. Since the time of the oldest, no team has been able to participate in the tournament. The morale of the students is falling and this state of affairs cannot continue. A guy from one of the teams noted that he had been saying for a long time that there was nothing to see here except weaklings. Jack walked up to his teacher, said hello, and announced that they were the next team to take the assessment task. After that, they were sent to a secret dungeon, the Iron Jaw Swamp. Professional team members are typically divided into 4 types depending on the functions they perform. Attackers are the main fighting force, responsible for clearing out new worlds and fighting enemies. Researchers analyze worlds to perform various tasks. The defenders protect civilians in emergency situations in already controlled territories. The support team complements the main group by applying buffs and providing emergency assistance. For each type, there is one clear task. There is also a main cast. Karen asked what type of task they would choose, and Jack replied that they would be explorers. The boy thought that there were still many things he didn't understand, such as gods or the level of the world. At this point, Olivia said that they would choose research since they had geniuses on their team. Suddenly, Karen told them to wait, because they had 2 tasks, and one of them was to capture the enemy alive. Then Jack said that they fought the boss first. At this moment, the people looking at them began to be surprised and showed it to others. They didn't understand what kind of team it was and why they had gathered so quickly. Some of them assumed that these were the guys from Academy 7 in the city. Everyone was amazed that they had very strong cultivation, clearly several times greater than their own. One of the girls thought it was no wonder that Brad spoke that way about Jack. The captain standing next to the man was shocked and couldn't even put a few words together. Olivia began to use fire skills at this moment. The man didn't understand if their skills could be that powerful, but Brad knew that these children were very strong on their own. The man continued to be amazed at how great everything was. Jack didn't seem to use any high-level skills, but he could disable an opponent with one blow. Everyone continued to be shocked by this command. At this time, the guys had dealt with the boss and were already heading back. A ranking table appeared in front of them, where they occupied first place. Jack asked Karen if they had completed all the tasks. When he heard a positive answer, he ordered everyone to return. Coming out of the portal, everyone looked at the guys in surprise. The team did not understand what was going on and were extremely shocked by this. Suddenly, the people who were looking at them started to applaud and admire them. At that moment, the girl explained to the boys that they were all very good and were school friends. The former leader said that at the time, someone was slandering Jack on the internet, and he threatened everyone. Everyone was surprised because the students' morale had risen greatly, and all because of the influence of this team. Suddenly, a voice was heard over the loudspeakers, saying that the exam was over. Everyone understood perfectly well that Academy number 7 had already taken half of the places, so there were only 4 left. The loudspeaker began to announce the school numbers and their names. At this moment, all the students began to look at each other in surprise. Then one of the boys called out to the teacher and asked where Jack and the others were on the list. The man then replied that they did not take up space on the list of regular students, and all because the organizing committee decided to give them assistant status. After some time, the man asked which team they were from, and said that he had come to pick them up. He also said that the leaders of the research group are not here now, and that is why he is taking them. The team went to their room and began unloading their things. Suddenly there was a knock at the door, and the man was allowed to enter. It was Mr. Brad, and everyone looked at him in surprise, since he was the director of the Adventurers Bureau. Also next to him was the guild leader of an influential house. Suddenly, other heads of different guilds appeared behind them. Everyone started talking to each other and discussing the exam. The man thought he was in a dream because the best specialists in the country were right in front of him. An old grandfather who was also present at the event turned out to be the director of Beijing University, who was asking students if they were interested in studying in Beijing. Another girl was the director of Western Union University and also invited students to visit them. All the best directors in the countries wanted to get closer to the students in their own way in order to interest them. The man was completely shocked that the directors of the 3 best universities personally called students to them. Jack paused awkwardly at this point, realizing that he was bad at such things. At this point, Brad asked the principals not to embarrass their students and asked them to let them rest first. Then everyone responded in unison that the man was right and the children had indeed had a hard day. And finally the next day arrived. Jack was surprised that the boys got up early and didn't understand what was wrong with their faces. The guys replied that their whole family had been calling them since early morning and asking which university they wanted to go to. Then Jack turned to the girls and thought that they were probably all right. Olivia at this point said in a different voice that Karen was still answering calls. Everyone started talking about how their relatives were so happy that they threw a banquet. Jack listened to all this with a dejected look and understood that he had no one. Suddenly his teacher called him and asked how he was settling in there. She also said that 3 top universities contacted her about the guy's admission. Then Jack laughed and said that they had gotten to the teacher too. The guy also said that the girl knows him better than anyone, and he wanted to hear her opinion. After some time, the men greeted all the students. This year the senior department was so strong, there were 5 students at the assistant level. One of the men said that today they would conduct the first stage of special training. Before the start, he asked the teachers to clarify the groups. Then the girl approached the teacher, said her number, and asked which team she was on. The man pointed his finger at the team's location and said that it was there. Turning around, the girl saw Jack, who was happily greeting her. After some time, the teams went into an unknown region that had no name. Jack studied the new lizard-like human subspecies and all its characteristics. Suddenly, the same monster attacked him from behind. The guy easily dealt with him, and also added that the monster has hard skin and scales, providing high protection. The girl was surprised that they surpassed even the fastest team in speed. She wondered if she could gain their approval and be as strong. At this point, Jack was telling him what his teacher had advised him about universities. Karen slapped him on the shoulder and said that the teacher was really worried and thinking about the guy. Suddenly, Olivia pointed to her phone and said that the class group was discussing something important. When everyone picked up their phones, they were very surprised by the message. It turned out that something had happened at the entrance, and it was necessary to quickly find someone to help. The dungeon suddenly changed, and the level of monsters increased dramatically, leaving more than 100 people inside. All the students suddenly started running out, and it was clear from their faces that they were very excited. Suddenly, the captain told one of them to stay away. Then the guy started shouting that their master was still locked there and asked them to save her quickly. The captain started yelling at him, because they had already reported this and were waiting for support from the main guild. The students started saying that they had to do something because the teacher had gone there to save them. The man simply replied that it was not his problem, that she had not had time to leave, and no one forced her to join them. All the students were shocked by these words, and did not know what else to say. Suddenly at that moment, Jack called out to them. Everyone looked at the guy with hope, and was glad that he came. The guy asked if everything was okay with the master, and where she was. The guy said that the academy had set up dungeons for everyone to level up, but suddenly something happened. The man then started shouting at the students not to make it sound like he had killed their teacher. He clarified that the girl voluntarily agreed to enter the dungeon. Suddenly, Jack grabbed him by the head and slammed him into the ground with fury. One of the captain's assistants took aim and ordered Jack to stop. Someone grabbed Jack by the shoulder, demanding that he put down his weapon. The guy grabbed the leader by the leg and dragged him towards the dungeon. Everyone asked to stop him to save the captain. The head of the guild appeared in front of Jack, and the guy thought that he had come to help. The man explained that they immediately came running after hearing about the incident and asked about the situation. He also offered his help to Jack. The witness was shocked that no one tried to stop Jack. The guards blocked the way, stating that the dungeon was closed and entry was prohibited. The guild leader showed a pass confirming his authority in emergency situations. Seeing the pass, the guards were amazed by the presence of the guild leader. When the entrance was opened, the man allowed Jack to pass through. Entering the dungeon, the guy saw a bright glow. It was an area effect that operated over a fixed range. The guild leader noted that there had never been such an effect here before, and also paying attention to the fact that it probably appeared after a mutation. Jack didn't care and continued to move towards his goal. Knowing that his base stats were high, he wasn't afraid of the debuff. The man decided to ask the guy who had regained consciousness where they should go. When he woke up, the boy screamed for help, not wanting to die. Terrible Jack told him that he would have to take them to the master or stay here. There were many forks in the dungeon, and no one knew the right way. Meanwhile, the other students were deep in the cave. One of them was hiding from a ferocious monster. The teacher tried to heal the wounded commanders and students. The seriously wounded man advised her to rest because she was tired. The teacher replied that she could rest later, but the injuries needed to be treated immediately. The little girl sincerely thanked the teacher for saving her. The other students didn't understand the point of being saved, since they all had ratings below 3 stars. The man cleared his throat and said that he was feeling better. The students were worried that much time had passed and help had not arrived. Suddenly, a huge monster broke through the protective wall. Everyone was horrified and didn't know what to do. The monster bit the wounded man and began to gnaw at him mercilessly. The little girl called for her dad with tears in her eyes. The teacher took the girl by the hand and ran to the others. The little girl could only run away, seeing her father being killed. Meanwhile, Jack reached the group. His team began to examine the wounded. The girl continued to cry over her dead father, and the teacher and Jack were nearby. It was estimated that 20 people died. The fate of the rest was unknown. Suddenly, a sharp debuff was applied to everyone. Jim finished off the monster with his weapon. He shouted that the monster was healing itself. As a result, the entrance was blocked and no one could get out. Jack cut the monster into pieces in a matter of seconds. He ordered everyone to follow him. The man was surprised that after Jack's blow the monster stopped recovering. People saw a light ahead and decided that they were saved. Everyone ran towards the light, hoping to get out of the dungeon. But right in front of them, an even stronger monster appeared. When they saw it, everyone was shocked at how big it was. The monster began to approach Karen, but she couldn't even move. At that moment, Jack jumped out and ordered everyone to stand still. He thought that this monster might be the culprit of the mutation in this dungeon, and decided that it would be easier to kill it directly. The monster continued to attack the guy, and at the last second he was able to hold off the attack with the ball. Everyone started to worry that it would break, and then Jack would get hurt. This risk did not stop the guy in any way, and he, having repelled the attack, took the sword more firmly. After that, he dealt the decisive blow and was able to defeat the monster. All the students came out of the dungeon with fear and tried to calm each other down. The man thanked Jack, because thanks to him, the mutation was put an end to. Suddenly, the guy saw someone and turned around. There was a teacher standing there, and she looked very downcast. Then Jack held out the orange-level trophy and said it was for her. It turned out to be an emblem of healing, giving 50% more healing. The man was shocked that the boy was able to get the legendary divine emblem. He understood that since the whole situation in the dungeon happened, this was the first time that someone had obtained a divine emblem. The teacher started saying that she was just a 3-star professional and it would be a waste for her to use this artifact. Jack told the woman not to make excuses and to simply accept the gift. Then Sarah took the emblem and began to activate it. The guy at that moment thought that they needed to teach the master how to protect herself as quickly as possible and give her a couple of lessons. After that, he asked the man to take a day off, and he agreed with a glow on his face. Jack began to think that all his classmates nicknamed the teacher the Smiling Tiger, and it turned out that he really was easygoing. After this, the man told Jack that there were just some finishing touches left, and after that they could return. There were already many reporters in front of the tape asking Jack if he was the hero who saved everyone. The men only reinforced their words and pointed at Jack. All the microphones were directed towards the guy at once, and he didn't understand what to do. Everyone asked the young gentleman to interview him and tell how he defeated the monster. Jack stood in complete shock from all these questions, because he had never dealt with this before. The boy's brother realized that he was most likely nervous in front of such a crowd of people. Karen replied that as a child, he avoided any gatherings even at school. However, she was sure that the guy would soon get used to this. Sometime later, Jack was back at the training camp. He felt very awkward because he didn't expect to be interviewed. Suddenly, the guy remembered that he seemed to have forgotten something important. Jack started using the life-saving skill and thought that it would be useful. Before him appeared the power of faith that the gods had taken from others. Jack realized that this ability to resurrect was very important, and also how to raise the world level. After this, the guy clearly understood that he needed to do one more thing. At this time, terrible clots of mucus engulfed people, and they could not breathe. Arriving at the scene, Brad asked how things were going. It turned out that this man had disappeared 5 years ago, and had finally reappeared. This case was very similar to the case of the ancient hawk. Upon seeing Brad, the enemy said that when he was in school, the man was his idol. Suddenly, the gentleman's phone rang. Picking up the phone, he greeted the master. The enemy said with a grin that now was not the best time to talk on the phone. The man, not paying attention, began to say that he would come soon. Starting a new attack, the guy said that no one would dare to ignore him. When he finally started to attack, he shouted that the man was actually far from cool. Brad began his transformation at this point. Seeing this, the guy was stunned with shock and did not know how to react. The man thought that this guy's strength was no joke, but after special training, he gained power. The people watching the fight were surprised that the gentleman was very powerful. And now, finally, Brad began his final attack. After that, he calmly asked the guys to clean up the place and left. After some time, the man was already sitting in the reception area. He asked if the boss was ready to reveal all the formulas for elite potions to the country. Evan said that was true and smiled. Their world was now in a state of imbalance, and the level of danger continued to rise. And if people want to raise their level, then they have to conquer more dangerous and complex worlds. Elite potions could completely change the current situation. Brad thanked the guy for his trust and said that it was very important for them. He also noted that investing in the future is what a boss does. Evan replied that this is what he admires, because every time the boss does something, it can become a feat. The man began to say that he was always so noble and never took advantage of the situation. At this time, the men were discussing something in the Azure Edge Guild. One of them said that they found that high-level experience potions and other things were being sold on the black market. All high-quality potions in the guild are made by him and controlled by the leader. The captain understood that in this world, the only one besides him who could create a high-level potion was the mysterious boss. After this, he ordered the soldiers to check everything immediately, and after that he shouted for them to run and carry out his order. At this time, Jack and Karen were in the teacher's room. The girl invited the guy to watch a recording of her interview. Jim, with an awkward smile on his face, said that he didn't really want to see it. Karen replied that it was not really that bad, and people were praising him. The guy thought that in recent days the power of faith has been growing rapidly, most likely because of the interview. It looks like he'll have to learn to adapt to this in the future. When they went outside, the guys started calling Jack and greeting him. Karen thought that since Jack showed his power, no one speaks badly about him anymore. While they were walking down the street, all the guys were there greeting the guy. The girls discussed how Jack was very powerful, and they would like to have at least half of his strength. At this time, Brad's student was watching his interview. The guy who was sitting next to her said that the city also became famous thanks to this hero. The mayor of the city sat in confusion, not knowing what to do. Hearing this, the boy asked what happened, and why the mayor was so unhappy. The man panicked and began to say that as soon as Jack went to university, the mysterious boss would leave them. He feared that without strong protection, the city would return to its original position. At this time, something struck the girl, and the guy asked what happened. She replied that the master had called her and told her that the mysterious boss was ready to conduct a special training session for her. At this point, the mayor stood up from his seat and said that now everything depended on the lady. After some time, the gentleman asked if what he said was true. The man replied that everything was correct, and the mysterious boss was ready to reveal all the formulas for elite elixirs. Since the formulas were currently only in the possession of the Azure Edge Guild, they bore a great deal of responsibility. The leader of this guild said with indignation that this would not be known to everyone. He then said that while he would not interfere with the disclosure of the formula, there was a possibility that his motives were not what they imagined. One man asked him what he meant. The man then replied that he had conducted a thorough check and found that none of the guild's elixirs were missing. And then he decided to remind everyone of the day when Evan told him one thing. The head of one of the guilds said that the black market is a huge underground network where many deals are made. Brad replied that if something like that were to happen, he would slowly send out a reconnaissance team. The guild leader began to say that it was absurd for a strong man to act in his own interests without any restrictions. He also noted that by that time they had discovered that these leaks were indeed related to the mysterious boss. Hearing this, Brad said that no one should worry, and if this matter was related to the boss, then he would take responsibility. At this time, Jack's team arrived in the mysterious kingdom. All exits and entrances were strictly guarded, and no flaws or leaks were found. Jack reflected that he had never taken the Earth seriously, but thanks to this, he would be able to determine where the leak came from. The guy assumed that besides the Azure Edge Guild, someone else might know the formulas. And so, after some time, people in cloaks were sitting at the black market and trading. They said that they didn't think that the 7 guilds would send investigators for a bottle of potion. When the other guy said that no one should worry, because he had seen it all for himself, suddenly they noticed the guests who had come again for the potion. The girl walked to the merchant and said that this place was difficult to find. One of the men said that 2 of his colleagues wanted to buy high-level experience potions. Then the girl said that a week ago a young master in white clothes came to them for a potion and never returned. Hearing this, the man standing behind the merchant said menacingly that they had come to the wrong address. At that moment, the monster's tentacles began to strangle these people. The man was shocked and couldn't even scream as the syringe was presented to him. The other man began to apologize to the master for the fact that the people had lied when they said they had come for the potion. The monster stuck poison into them and told them to prepare for something. It turned out that all the people who came to the merchant were locked in dark magic balls. One of the traders said that there were enough people this time and decided to take a break. They left thinking that they would finally become the masters of this world. The monster said that he could not be absent for long and ordered to return quickly. After that, his form began to fly rapidly towards one of the buildings. This monster has once again taken on its human body through its head. A couple of days later, Jack asked on the phone about the evidence. Evan said that several people were sold elite potions on the black market, but they did not find the person who sold them. Then Jack asked to let him know as soon as there was news. Evan, having passed out, thought that he had to hide with this little thing. Otherwise, he would be ashamed in front of the boss. Suddenly, he received a call from Brad's student. When he picked up the phone, he immediately asked if she had found anything. The girl replied that everything was still empty and there were no clues. However, the enemy was already very close and was slowly activating his power. At this time, the students were having lunch and discussing various news. One of the guys thought Jack was very nice and not arrogant and indifferent like other powerful people. Jack, who was living at that moment, on the contrary, said that everyone in this academy was very good, and in the future, he would be able to rely on them. At this point, Susan asked if the boy had thought about which guild to join. The guy replied that he didn't plan to join the guild yet and smiled. Then one of the students asked if Jack wanted to create his own guild. Hearing this, the student thought that with his guild, the future would definitely be bright. And then he asked if he could join the Stern Lions and be one of the members of this team. Hearing this, Karen became embarrassed and couldn't even figure out what to answer. Then others started saying that they too were graduating soon and would like to join them. After lunch, the team walked and discussed how a regular lunch had turned into some kind of fair. Listening to all these conversations, Jack only smiled, because at that moment he was truly happy. He began to think that he had originally planned to find guys for a training camp, but he had not expected the outcome to be much better. As for Oliver's disappearance, it was entirely his fault. First, his father conspired, and then when officials investigated, they found a magic circle in the house of the man and his followers. Now he and 2 others are wanted, and the girl excluded all his people from the guild. Suddenly, he received a notification on his phone, which slightly surprised the guy. Mr. Brad's student said that they found a remnant of the Dark Force, and thought that it was some kind of special mutant. Suddenly, Evan came out to her and said that it was a monster that they had never seen before. The guy understood that ordinary monsters could not leave the secret kingdom where they lived for a long time. They parasitize other living organisms, and completely take control of the actions and thinking of their host. At an early stage, the parasites are very fragile, which is why they hide in capsules. However, it is worth remembering that they should all hatch soon. The girl said that an absolutely unknown number of parasites had mixed with the human world, and now it was in danger. Evan said that this was far from the most important thing, and closed his eyes. At this time, the heads were discussing something in the office of the Azure Edge Guild. They were indignant that many days had passed, and they had not found anything. Suddenly, a dark silhouette entered her office, simply glowing with black magic. It turned out to be an employee who suddenly turned into a terrible monster. The head of the guild understood that this was definitely not their friend, but he could not understand what had happened to him. At that moment, a sharp knife pierced his neck with some kind of poison, and his veins began to turn dark. After the poison took effect, 2 men joined the monster. Then the enemy said that he didn't expect to see a gentleman from the Era's guild here, and it was a surprise for him. After that, he said that it was a great honor for the lower beings to contribute to the development of his army. At this time, Evan was discussing with the girl what the boss told him about how weak these monsters were individually. The more parasites there are, the stronger each one will be, and the king of those who created them gets an even higher bonus. Their conversation eventually led to the revelation that these monsters had been secretly amassing power on the black market. The girl was worried about how they would deal with these terrible creatures. Evan replied that the boss told him that when the parasite's power reaches a certain level, it can be detected using special tools or spells. After discussing this, the girl said that she would definitely pass it on to the master, so that he could find this thing as soon as possible. She thought that although she didn't know where to find this divine item, she would definitely do it. At that moment, Jack could not understand at all what kind of divine object this was. There was something about parasites in the memories of the previous Demon King, so the guy had a rough idea. However, it seemed to him that there was nothing in this world that met these conditions. The location of the parasites was hidden, and once they became stronger, they would cause great harm. Suddenly, Jack's thoughts were interrupted by a phone call, and he noticed it. Evan on the phone said that large fluctuations of dark energy were coming from the Azure Edge Guild headquarters. The guy also said that they couldn't contact anyone or the guild, even the leader himself. Jack ordered them to stay away from headquarters while he went and checked out what was going on. At this time, on the roof of the headquarters, the enemy was saying that he would no longer have to hide in the darkness. All his former enemies now bowed down to him and were loyal to death. At that moment, the guild leaders approached the current king and said that everything was ready. Suddenly, Jack's silhouette appeared in front of them, intending to deal with the enemies. The monster immediately unleashed its dark power. However, Jack easily dealt with her, and the monster realized that this was the guy who was being interviewed. Jack was thinking at this moment that more than half of the city was under enemy control. Then the enemy asked why the guy came alone, and also laughed at the fact that the others did not dare. Jack, ignoring his words, only asked if the man was the king of all the captured people. After hearing the boy call him king, the man simply asked if he wanted to join. After that, he laughed and said that he would never allow people from the lower world to join his team. Suddenly, something interrupted his fiery speech. It was Jack's blow, and the man began to acknowledge its strength, but clarified that the guy would not be able to kill him so easily. Jack continued to think about the fact that there was no effect from normal attacks. The enemy was completely convinced that not a single divine object remained. Suddenly, something happened that he could not have expected. Jack opened a dark gate that caused a constant stream of creatures to flow out. The monster began to scream that it was no wonder the guy had such power, and then also said that Jack was just a servant of the Demon Lord. The man continued to say that Jack simply felt that defeat was approaching, and therefore called the Master. The enemy shouted that if the Supreme Being forcibly penetrates the lower world, then his power will be weaker. Jack at this time thought that this summoning spell was still forbidden, so he had to be careful. Suddenly, through the flying fragments, the guy saw the Supreme Lord of Demons. It turned out to be a small capybara, which greatly surprised everyone present. The monster began to laugh and say that he did not even feel the power of darkness from this creature. At that moment, the little animal lay down on the ground and, using the crystal on its forehead, began to put all the people to sleep. The man could no longer move, so he did not understand what had happened. Jack reasoned that this little animal ate a parasite that was sitting in the body. The monster thought it was just a demon lord, but was surprised by what kind of horror had volunteered. Then Jack asked the enemy if he was really invincible. The monster began to apologize and say that he was wrong and beg for mercy. This man and his men somehow broke into his dungeon, and so he parasitized on it. I came here. Jack asked who he was in his dungeon. The monster replied that he was relatively weak at first, so he could only hide in the black market. At this time, all the heads sat and watched this through a special ball. The man said that due to the lack of necessary security measures, they could not cope with the parasitic demon, so they could only leave it to Jack. Others said that if it weren't for the guy, the Azure Edge Guild would have been completely absorbed. Brad told them not to be so contradictory, because the mysterious boss and Jack were always on their side. Hearing this, all colleagues confirmed what was said. The gentleman said that a special company would be created to produce and sell various high-class potions. Jack will get 80% without worrying about anything. They also want to thank the guy for 2 recent heroic acts, and many reporters would like to interview the guy. Hearing this, Jack thought that he should not miss the opportunity to accumulate the strength of faith. After that, the guy took a pen and began to sign the contract, while thanking them for organizing everything. After that, the guy said that it was time for them to return to the training camp, and also asked to leave the capybara in their care. At this point, Evan thought that the boss's pet could easily kill the parasite, and was afraid that it was stronger and more useful than him. Jack thought that this kid's ability was similar to an effect that could completely deprive the opponent of control over the body. The little animal continued to sniff the pendant that hung around Jack's neck. The guy didn't understand if he had anything to do with this pendant. Stroking the animal on the head, the guy decided that he would call it a sloth, given its leisurely and slow pace. After some time, the guy returned to the training camp. Suddenly, someone's voice was heard loudly asking where that hero was. A girl ran up to Jack and asked if he was a great hero. At this point, Brad's grandson greeted the teacher and said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. The boys were extremely surprised when they heard that this little girl was a teacher. Jack's brother explained that she was an outstanding teacher at Beijing University, and also a famous advisor to all the guilds. Hearing this, the guy was shocked and couldn't even say anything. The girl said that she had heard about him, and that the guy was really strong, and was able to save so many people. That's why she became interested in seeing what their hero looked like. After that, she took Jack by the hand, and said that she thought the guy had not had breakfast yet, and suggested that they have lunch together. Walking a little further, she showed them her dishes and said that she had prepared them from ingredients from monsters. All the students began to eat with gusto and highly praised the prepared dishes. Suddenly, Jim asked if the master had arrived, since he usually got up early. At this time, the master was thinking that the lady was doing nothing but making them work. Jack and his partner had completely different attitudes towards work, which was very confusing. At this time, the teacher told the boy that she had looked at the recording of his testing, and added that his results were perfect. She noted that she had not seen a genius for a long time who was good both in theory and in practice. When the teacher said that she had brought something special from the dungeon, Jack looked at her in surprise. Entering the lab room, she said that it was his first time in the training camp's research lab. She asked the men to mind their own business, because she just decided to show the guys something. The master felt the aura of high-ranking people on herself, although only a couple of children had come. The man was extremely confused, and could not remember where he had left off. Suddenly, Jack noticed that the demonic crystal suddenly began to show weak energy fluctuations. At this point, the teacher asked him what he thought this thing was. The guy replied that, judging by the fragments, it looked like something artificially made, like a fragment of a wall. The girl said that, according to previous discoveries, all dungeons have their own ecology. She also said that these things were found in the Valley of the Secret Kingdom, and since the monsters were very strong, they did not go too deep. Jack immediately wondered if it was possible that the teacher had found the place where the Lord had once lived. Then he asked to take a closer look at these stones. Vibrations of energy emanated from this crystal fragment, and the pendant absorbed its essence. When the teacher asked him what he thought, the boy replied that he would most likely have to go to that place to see everything for himself. After some time, they were already in this place, and the girl showed the guys her research team, which would help the guy inside. Everyone greeted Jack with a smile on their face, and said they were glad to see him. Brad's grandson thought that these scientists were true professionals in their field. Karen at this time supported her friend and said that they were one team, so they should work together. When everyone was ready, the teacher shouted that it was time to move forward. Then, after some time, a huge monster jumped out at them. Jim easily dealt with him in one blow. Jack told everyone not to worry and to continue working. Everyone was surprised that the guy killed such a monster with just one move, and they could feel completely safe. Suddenly, Jim said that he had found something and called the lady. And having looked at everything, The girl said that this was definitely a trace of an old civilization, and perhaps the inhabitants were once killed by monsters. Jack thought that the teacher's guess was probably correct. Suddenly, the guy saw the glow of the crystal and paid attention to it. The pendant reacted to the crystal again, and the guy became curious about what was deep in the ruins. Suddenly, someone from the team said that strong fluctuations of dark energy had been detected ahead. It was very similar to a magic circle that summoned an evil god. But the feeling was different. In this darkness, a bunch of aggressive monsters were hiding, their eyes glowing scarlet. Jim warned his partner that there were too many monsters and asked him to be careful. After that, he courageously said that they would not be able to break through their defense. The teacher noted that there are an infinite number of these monsters. She was worried that students were now under a lot of pressure. At this point, Karen said she wanted to see if she could handle the boss. Jack began to use his dark power as the monsters seemed to fly towards him. The research team was shocked that the guy single-handedly destroyed such a stream of monsters. The guy thought that the teacher and another girl had undergone his special training, so their strength should not be underestimated now. Everyone around saw that the monsters seemed to be afraid of the guy, and also thought that perhaps it was time for them to retire. Karen shouted that there was a boss ahead, and asked not to forget about power-ups and abilities. At that very second, the girl instantly dealt with the monster. A few minutes earlier, a man had asked if there was anyone else in this dungeon. Suddenly, a cry was heard that someone had found the entrance and they needed to leave quickly. Movement was also detected at the main entrance. The whole dungeon was like computer graphics, and people didn't understand what was happening. It turned out that the secret kingdom had been violated, and they began to be thrown out. At this point, Karen asked Jack if he had heard anything like voices. The guy was already thinking that the pendant had just swallowed the crystal's energy. Suddenly, the teacher said that she heard something similar in some direction. Then Jack suggested that they go and check out the place together. The teacher began to use her magic and illuminate everything around. Suddenly, they noticed someone's tracks, but did not understand why they disappeared on the way to the exit. One girl said that she asked the security, and they told her that no one had passed through. Jack didn't understand where they came from, or how they got away from here. The teacher began to speculate that these people could have entered through the entrance or in any other way. At this time, the captain of one of the guilds said that there were no signs of a struggle, and everything was clear. Then Mr. Brad said that they needed to double-check everything urgently. They decided to use a method of clearing the dungeon that took only a few minutes. Typically, it used the most effective combat methods to destroy monsters. One of the girls said that she didn't think that anyone other than Jack and the others was capable of such a thing. Then the teacher asked if they could be adventurers from other worlds. She also clarified that this was only her assumption, but it was not worth denying it right away. Jack knew that the girl was right, because at least he had seen several other worlds in the Demon King's memory. The teacher continued to wonder whether the other country was friendly towards them. Then the girl thought that troubles never come alone, and excitement was visible on her face. Then the captain said he would like to know Karen's opinion. He also asked if she was interested in replacing the Azure Edge Guild and becoming part of the family. The man said that due to recent events, the Era Guild and the Azure Edge Guild had big problems. The girl awkwardly began to say that they were only high school students, and her guild was very small. Then Jack asked Karen to make the decision herself, and not take anyone else's opinion into account. The guild leaders were well aware that Jack's promise could definitely help the girl gain a firm foothold in the 7 guilds. At this point, Karen said she was willing to try and asked if she couldn't do something to teach her. At this time, Jim was telling Olivia that he didn't understand at all how 7 guilds appeared here. Jack reasoned that joining the guilds was a huge step forward in his regaining his power. Suddenly a voice was heard calling for the Lord. The guy immediately thought that no one even paid attention to this, and realized that he was the only one who heard this voice. After that, Jack immediately remembered that this voice was very similar to the voice of the former Demon Lord. After some time, the team was ordered to speed up the work, but to act alone. The study group's data indicated that Jack's presence was calming. The guy thought that the pendant had stopped absorbing the crystal's energy, but he didn't understand why. Suddenly, he heard the voice calling the master again. When he turned his attention to him, the voice began to say that it was very nice to talk to the guy again. Jack told him to calm down and tell him what was wrong, and then the monster said that he himself did not understand what had happened, because it was as if he had suddenly come to his senses. And also, pointing to the crystal, he added that, apparently, this is the heart of the world. He began to explain that the heart of the world is the world core, formed by the fusion of the laws of the universe. The laws of the universe, contained in the heart of the world, were the sources of the power of the gods. Suddenly he fell silent, and then justified it by saying that he had memory lapses. Then Jack said that it was no big deal, but the monster continued to be sad about letting his master down. The guy just wondered if this method of resurrection had any side effects. At this time, the team told the professor that the research was almost complete, and nothing of value had been discovered except for a few abandoned buildings. Then the guild leader said that since there might be intruders here at any moment, it was better not to stay in this place. After these words, Brad asked what the head of Karen thought about this. He also clarified that the girl was now a member of the Seven, and the decision to seal this place must be approved by at least 3 heads. And so, after the work had been done, the secret kingdom was successfully sealed, and everyone thanked each other for the work done. Sometime later, Jack was at the training base. The guy was calmly taking a shower, when suddenly the monster said that he remembered their previous conversation. Because he spoke to the boy, the water turned ice cold and Jack screamed. The monster started saying that he deserved to die, and then the guy asked what he remembered. He couldn't put a couple of words together because he blamed himself for this mistake. When Jack started to say that everything was fine, the monster said that it was about resurrection. In the previous blog, the World Heart was used to resurrect loved ones. However, since the World Heart also contains dark power, the connection between a god and his loved one could be forcibly changed, and the god himself could even become a god of evil. After these words, the monster said that he was not afraid of death, and that it was better than dragging the guy down. Jack already liked these words and grinned sarcastically. Then he thought that if he told the truth to the monsters, it would break him even more. At this point, the former ruler asked if the guy was feeling any discomfort right now. Suddenly, the system appeared in front of the guy and said that he had a new passive skill. At this point, Jack asked if the monster's resurrection only affected the guy. And then, with a smile on his face, he said that since he had already been resurrected, then let him live. The servant, with tears in his eyes, began to say that the guy had spoken exactly the same way last time, but he did not want to be a burden. Then Jack said that there was something the boy needed to tell him. With a calm expression on his face, the guy said that according to legend, these gods called him the god of evil. The monster said that because of their selfish schemes, many people died in that senseless war. No one cared about her life, and only one guy always sought justice for them. Then I, Jack, said that I would do everything possible to protect people. The monster began to say with tears in his eyes that he was very happy to be next to the guy again. After some time, Jack was lying on the bed and was still somewhat confused. In short, all this was a degree of recognition of the world by the gods. Only when intelligent life arose in the world did it attract the attention of the gods, but this is just attention. If the world passes the test of the gods, it will be able to receive blessings and gain a stronger civilization and power. This meant that the world level was very low, and the world could be considered almost deprived of God's blessing. Then the monster said that with the guy the future of this world would become brighter. He also said that the equipment is relatively poor quality and cannot meet the guy's needs, so Jack needs to change the voltage to the artifact level. Hearing this, the guy asked the monster again in surprise. The servant replied that they are usually created by them and can only be done with the help of God's power. He also said that the pendant that hung around the guy's neck was also an artifact. Now the guy didn't understand how to do this, and he was extremely curious. Suddenly the pendant lit up right in his hand, and the whole room lit up. Jack was happy that he had succeeded, and the monster added that it was all because the guy was a god. The servant thought that the boy doubted his identity, but now he can definitely rest easy. Using the artifact, Jack received a lot of points to spiritual attributes. The monster then added that, unfortunately, the quality of the equipment was only orange, and said that he would find suitable materials. Hearing this, Jack said that every time he communicates with him, he realizes that he still doesn't know a lot. And so in the morning, the monster greeted his master again and was clearly in a good mood. Yesterday, when talking to him, Jack didn't even think about the fact that he had previously been in another world. However, he decided that he would support the monster and everything would be fine. And now the guy was already in the secret kingdom and earning points for spiritual attributes. The man said that Jack was too scary, and before, he and the boss would take a long time to deal with monsters. But now it happens in an instant. Then the boy asked if there were any other secret kingdoms, but the teacher said that they were already breaking away from their opponents. The man also said that all the guys arrive at the training camp already strong, and since Jack finishes earlier, they always go to a secret training base. Therefore, other teams have submitted a joint petition to have participants exchange between teams starting next month. Also, some teachers have already been caught changing the names of their students. Then the girl proudly said that no one could take away their Jack. At that moment, the monster told Jack about his spell. He said the guy had the right combination to maintain the effects of spells in the right situations. Then Jack said that since he had already brought it up, he could watch the guy train in the evening. After some time, the teacher explained that the total damage caused by skills can be divided into 2 parts. Listening to the teacher, Jack said that it was his favorite subject, which included mathematics, physics, biology, topography, and much more. He thought that this world was too low standard, and so people tried to make the most of what they had. Of course, everyone understood that it was not necessary for everyone to master these theoretical points. The monster, hearing Jack's desire to learn, said that he too would try hard to do everything. After school, Jack and Karen walked home. Suddenly, Tom unexpectedly called out to the guy, and he looked alarmed. Seeing him, Jack was surprised that the guy was looking for him. Jack remembered that at the training base he rarely exchanged even a few words, but now he looked a little nervous. Suddenly the boy bowed and said that without him, his guild and the Azure Edge would have come to an end. Then Jack began to awkwardly say that it was an accident, and that it wasn't worth coming for this. Tom began to think that earlier, because of his brother, he had distanced himself from Jack and deeply despised everyone who was close to him. But now he realized that he had been stupid. At that moment, Jack looked awkwardly at the guy and didn't even know what to say to him, since they didn't know each other very well. Suddenly, Tom handed the boy a ball and said that it was a small gift to express his gratitude. It turned out to be another fragment of the world's heart, which greatly surprised Jack and his monster. That same evening, they talked about how after the destruction of a world, as a rule, a fragment remains in it, and if you find it, you can open this world again. Jack realized that the teacher had opened the secret kingdom, but at that time she did not know the principle. The heart of the world was an important resource, but His Excellency was faster, so these intruders were rejected and corrected back to their original world. He kept saying that it was a trophy his brother had gotten in the secret kingdom, and he also heard from the teacher that they had just won one of them, so he thought Jack would need it. The guy took the gift with a smile and thanked the student profusely. After some time, they walked through the Dark Kingdom and said that the fragments pointed to this very place. The teacher said that Jack figured out how to use it very quickly, and if she ever found something like that, she would definitely contact the guy. Hearing this, Jack thought with a smile on his eyes that this was simply wonderful. His condition was still unstable, and the boy wanted to accumulate some energy and power from the heart of the world. Therefore, he needed help to regain his strength as soon as possible. When they entered the secret kingdom, they were very surprised, because this place was very beautiful. The monster was shocked that there was not a single trace of destruction in it. Then Jack suggested that the team take a look around. After some time, they came across a living settlement and were shocked even more. Olivia asked if she understood correctly that ordinary people lived here. The monster said that this could not be, because a fragment of the heart of the world always leads only to the corresponding world. At the entrance, the guards stopped the team and asked who they were. Hearing this question, Jack awkwardly scratched his cheek and couldn't think of what to say. The guards then asked if they were adventurers from another world, and after that she said that it was not difficult to guess about this, because their clothes do not correspond to this world. Hearing this, the teacher asked if adventurers from other worlds often visited them. When the guard said that this happened sometimes, and then laughed a little at the girl's height, she got angry. After this, the man said that if they wanted to enter the city, then otherwise he could guarantee that they would not return alive. As the team began to enter, he also told them to keep a good eye on their child so that she would not run away anywhere. This made the teacher even more angry, and she was terribly furious. Looking at the people around him, Jack understood why their visit did not surprise the guards. Suddenly they noticed the statue and decided to see what was written on it. Jack found it strange that he had never seen such letters before, and could not read them. Then the teacher leaned over to the inscription and said that it listed heroic deeds. Karen decided to check if this place had actually been attacked by monsters. Olivia thought it was really cool that the girl had convinced an entire army of monsters on her own. Suddenly their partner saw a red mark on the tree and told everyone to stop. Jim decided to approach him and ask what happened, but the guy was shocked. As they got closer, the red writing disappeared, which shocked the guy even more. Jack asked again about this situation, and then Brad's grandson told him which tree he saw it on. At that moment, the guy noticed the strange look of people, and it worried him. They all looked at the team with aggression, and the guy understood that something was wrong. Suddenly all these people turned into terrible monsters with bloodthirsty faces. Jack realized that it was all an illusion, and they had fallen into a demonic trap. The guy started killing all the monsters that were approaching him as quickly as possible. Jim broke his axe during the fight with the monsters and was very scared. He understood that without weapons, he would not be able to cope with such an enemy. Suddenly the monster froze and seemed to freeze in the air. The servant warned Jack that these monsters were from a higher level world, and his men might not be able to handle them. The guy didn't understand what to do, because they could use their remaining energy to help him destroy the rest of the monsters. After that, he looked boldly at his team and said that he had confidence in them. Jim and Karen suddenly saw the monster and were shocked by what they saw and did not know how to react. Then Jack said that it was his assistant from another world whom he had summoned. At that very moment, the servant shouted that first they needed to calm down these monsters. Karen was very surprised that the spell was very powerful, and surpassed the orange skills. Then the teacher noticed who this power was coming from and pointed to the girl from the statue. The girl began to tell the monster that he seemed to be the strongest of them. Then the servant said that this was not so, and that he was far from being the strongest rider. At some point the girl became angry that he believed in gods, and she asked if they really all thought that these gods needed them. When the monster returned, the girl began to scream that he did not dare turn away from her. Suddenly she noticed that her speed was slowed by the water. She started running and shouting to them that this was far from the end, but only the beginning. Seeing that she had a weapon in her hands, the monster realized that this was her source of power. The girl was surprised that he was stronger than her magical weapon. And then, after a few minutes, she began to be torn apart from the inside. The teacher watched this spectacle and thought she was speechless. The monster said that the weapon was indeed powerful, but she didn't know how to handle it. After that, he took this weapon in his hand and decided to see how it worked. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the silhouette of a girl appeared, who thought that this servant did not understand at all the horror of the god of death. She also remembered that as long as this weapon existed, she would never die. When Jack asked about the monster's condition, he replied that the weapon had suddenly absorbed his energy, and therefore he could no longer remain in full physical form. Hearing this, the guy decided to take a look at the weapon himself and went straight to it. When he took it in his hands, something really surprised the guy and made him wary. The girl continued to think that these dogs wanted to donate their energy to her. Then Jack asked in a menacing voice why she was so happy. Hearing that this was addressed to her, the girl was significantly surprised. Suddenly, God's death stopped absorbing energy, which also worried her. Jack couldn't even imagine at that moment that this weapon would be a very important thing. It was the final relic, and the boy knew he shouldn't rush to absorb it just yet. After this, he again asked in a menacing voice what had happened here in the end. At this time, the teacher was walking with Karen, and was interested in how things were going with Jack, because all the monsters had frozen. The girl in the guise of a ghost began to tell the guy that this place was once beautiful. In her memories, she asked her friend Michael what was going on. The guy rudely answered her that a window with an inscription appeared in front of him. Then the girl began to scream in surprise that perhaps God had chosen the guy. From then on, the boy began to train so that the god would be very pleased with his skill. Ultimately, Michael was given the opportunity to choose some mercy. Then, rising into the sky, the guy shouted goodbye to the girl that they would see each other again. He also promised that he would keep an eye on them. They tried to support the girl, saying that the guy would be able to continue to take care of them. Then she accepted the fact that he was leaving and smiled hopefully. However, after a while, only more monsters appeared, and the god never appeared. Her friends in the next battle told the girl that they would die, and they really didn't want this. Then she, continuing to look forward, answered that they would not die, and that they had one last ray of hope. Ultimately, the girl used the dark power and was able to restore the country to its former state. However, the dark force itself took a price for its use. Suddenly he felt an ominous aura and turned around. Michael stood in front of him, greeting his friend with a smirk on his face. The girl was shocked when she saw him, because she thought he would never come back. Then Jack began to tell Michael to forgive him, because he would not give up his new trophy. Michael smiled slightly and laughed, then said that there had been a slight misunderstanding. It turned out that because Jack took the item, an offering was made, which surprised them greatly. Then Michael said that this was his weapon, and if the guy didn't give it up, it would also become an offering. At this moment, Jack's monster said that this was the divine power of the true Holy Spirit. Hearing this, the girl got down on one knee and began to ask Jack for forgiveness for her rashness. She wanted to know the truth, and then the guy told her to ask Michael herself. This really shocked the girl, because he was a long-forgotten friend, and she held a great grudge against him. At that moment, Michael was thinking with a menacing look about why Jack was grinning. The guy told the girl that he had a skill that he could give her for a while, but eventually the girl would be forced to disappear completely. At that moment, she shouted that she was not afraid of anything, and was now ready for anything. Then Jack began to transfer his ability, and the girl developed an active skill. Michael watched this and was shocked because his girlfriend appeared in front of him. When the girl fully emerged, she began to say that Jack had a very powerful dark force. Jack only told the girl that he would not control her thoughts, so she could talk to him herself. Michael was shocked and couldn't understand how his girlfriend appeared out of nowhere. The girl said menacingly that he should explain himself, and preferably right now. Michael began to ask what Jack had done to her, and if she was under the influence of the dark force. At that moment, the girl attacked the guy, wanting revenge. After that, she asked why he didn't show up when the monsters invaded again. Michael started screaming that he hadn't abandoned them, and she should believe him because he was involved in another important matter at the time. He also said that the girl does not know how difficult it was to find this world, because even if he is strong in this world, in God's world, he is absolutely nobody. Michael also said that the girl needs to understand what pressure and feelings of worthlessness are. She told the guy not to dodge because he somehow managed to find a weapon. Then Michael began to justify himself by saying that he had left a magical mark on him, and when it disappeared, he felt it. He also clarified that if he hadn't felt that he was getting weaker, then the guys would have clearly come to an end. The boy asked for the sake of his loyalty not to leave him, and to send divine punishment to destroy his enemies. And now the girl was already sitting on one knee and, holding out the trophy, thanking Jack for such an opportunity. Then the boy said that he wanted to know where the heart of the world was located here. And besides, he also asked that everything be explained to his comrades. The girl said that she once thought that for Michael the highest glory was to be chosen by God, but she did not expect that he would forget about them. After this incident, everyone realized that the gods do not pay equal attention to all worlds. Despite everything, Michael was of her people, and the girl decided that he would be free forever with her. After this situation, Jack turned to Karen and asked how she felt. The girl began to say that she thought that even with the blessing of the gods, the girl's world would still not escape destruction. Then Jack said that the girl had not yet managed to take him somewhere tasty to eat, and told her not to worry. Then Karen smiled sweetly and said just as sweetly that Jack was a fool. The team started to return, and the girl also asked the teacher if they would come back here after dinner. At that moment, Michael rose high into the sky on divine power. He said that it was too late, and he didn't feel the familiar aura again. But one face remained in his memory. Jack was in his head, and the guy was wondering if he was an almighty god. Michael decided that the guy wasn't going anywhere anyway, and so he had to sort everything out first. One of the guild leaders said that, according to the professor's report, the gods can choose the lucky ones they like in different worlds and grant them a blessing. The girl answered her that, despite the fact that God had chosen her, the woman was still in danger. The leader began to say that this time in the secret realm, the enemy's strength was far superior to theirs. Even though Jack was always with them, they couldn't be parasites who put all their hopes on the child. Suddenly, Karen said that Jack had recently summoned a powerful character from another world, and she thought the heads should know about it. The guy also studied the combat, then compared their strength with the strength of the monsters, and finally came to a conclusion. Karen said that Brad realized that their world should have died 30 years ago. Hearing this, one of the girls was very surprised and scared. Karen went on to say that over 80 years ago, the secret realm suddenly merged with reality, and humanity suffered heavy losses, despite the fact that they were at a disadvantage in the face of monsters. She also said that Jack said that in fact the monsters they encountered had long since surpassed the level of their world. The girl thought that while they had a chance, they should continue to make this miracle come true. After a long silence, Karen asked if she had said something wrong and became nervous. Suddenly everyone started applauding her and admiring the girl. After that, the guild leader told the gentleman that the decision to invite Ms. Karen was more correct than ever. Everyone realized that it was difficult for them to cope with the monsters, because they had become much stronger than people. After everyone agreed with Karen, the captain asked how they would cope with meeting the gods in the future. Everyone understood perfectly well that the gods were not their hope. At this time, Michael walked through their world and thought that he never attracted much attention, so the gods rarely appeared here. However, he also felt that in this world he felt his own secret kingdom. At this time, the student was in the Azure Edge Guild. He thought that the guild that his brother had worked so hard for had disintegrated in an instant. Suddenly, a god appeared in front of him, who was surprised that there was someone in this room. The student immediately began to activate his power and shout who Michael was. Then the boy replied that he was the master of this secret kingdom and told the student not to be afraid of him. The student began to remember what they had been told about how two people were not allowed to be in this kingdom. The guy remembered that he had seen Michael's image in the images, and also knew that he was moving power within the secret realm. After this, Tom got down on one knee and asked if God was there to listen to his prayer. Michael replied that the boy had to prove to him that his faith and strength were worthy of God's blessing. The guy, hearing this, said that he would do whatever God asked him to do. However, Tom actually thought that this almighty God was very cunning, and he should not act rashly until the guy knew his motive. At that moment, Michael showed Jack and ordered the student to find this man. Tom was shocked when he saw Jack because he knew perfectly well who it was. Then Michael said that from that moment on, the student would follow the guy and report everything to him. He also told the guy to remember that he should never draw attention to himself. Tom, hearing all this, was perplexed and did not know what to do. Michael recalled that he once noticed that the secret realm of trials was being invaded, and immediately began searching, but a strange force prevented him. After that, he asked who the adventurer was who had passed the test here. Tom said in confusion that it was a friend of that evil god, and still did not understand what was happening. Then Michael said that Tom's glory was taken away by the minions of the god of evil, which was very sad. All God needed from the student was his devotion, and the boy knelt down before him. And now Tom was standing in front of Jack and asking what was really going on. The student said that the guy claimed to be the incarnation of God, and sent him specifically to find out about Jack. The boy's servant was surprised, because the body could not be used for long. Jack was surprised, because he thought that all the gods looked the same as him. Tom also said that he checked several times and the guy was not omnipotent, so he was most likely faking it on purpose. The monster then said that those who had recently accepted the faith had not had much contact with the gods to be able to trust them unconditionally and immediately recognize them. After that, Jack thanked the guy for all the information he had told him. Tom did think the guy was really unusual, and to be honest, his brother had been very interested in Jack's background before. Jack understood that after his identity was confirmed, he became calmer. Jack said that he could follow the true Holy Spirit for now, but he would end up in great danger. Then the monster said that the guy actually had great advantages over other gods in this world. When higher beings enter the lower world, their powers are limited, and this is determined by the laws of the universe. And so, which the guy experienced there earlier, actually went beyond time and space and directly encountered the divine realm. Then Jack decided to make a new plan, and the servant said that he would tell him all the known information. The guy continued to think that he had mastered dozens of forbidden spells, so a battle with a god would not be a big problem for him. According to the description, this is a control skill whose effect depends on the level difference. The guy understood that he needed to learn a couple of spells, just in case, that could counter mental skills. After that, he asked the monster if God would track him if he returned to base. After some time, he and the servant were already at the base, and the monster was petting the capybara. Evan was saying at this point that the servant could create a powerful force field around himself, blocking various effects and detections. It sounded really scary, and the monster added that the capybara was the master of monsters, and its strength exceeded that of most bosses. Evan was shocked when he heard this. He never thought that the animal could be capable of such a thing. Then the servant told him not to worry, because since this little boy's mood was stable, his dark force aura did not even manifest. There were many hot springs in their clan, so he often bathed it, because the little animal loved it. Evan began to think that he knew this little animal was strong, but he didn't expect it to be that strong. Suddenly Jack came up to them and said that he had looted something from the secret kingdom, and then offered to take it to Evan. Then the guy started thanking the boss, and said that he would work hard to become strong and indestructible. Jack realized that when he spoke of the arrival of the true Holy Spirit, he did not flinch at all. Jack also thought that the security measures at the base were the best, and wanted to see if he could find a spell to protect against mental attacks. At this time, God was in his secret kingdom. He reflected that he already had some idea about this world. The people in it were very weak and offered almost no resistance to the previously invading monsters, which greatly surprised the god. He was sure that more than one god had supported them during this time, including the Almighty God. In other words, these people have certain skills that allow them to compete with monsters. Michael wondered if an almighty god might also be interested in this potential and planned to develop it for his own benefit. Squeezing one of the cities as if in the palm of his hand, he declared that he would not allow it to carry out its plan. At that moment, Tom came to him and God asked him how he was doing. The guy also clarified that the student had already tried to pass this test about 100 times. And then, turning around, Michael said with a menacing look that in fact this was just his test for the student. People who received the blessing of the gods could accept the tests sent to them, and if the tasks were completed, the person could receive a gift. Mike also noted that what he can give is beyond even Tom's imagination. According to the information found, there are 3 secret kingdoms in the world, where spells of resistance to mental attacks can be found. Jack decided to visit one of them, and the monsters in it were already asking the boss to spare them. Their leader said that if he did nothing, the boy would think that they were easy to defeat. After that, he started shouting at Jack to come closer to him. As soon as the guy moved towards him, the leader immediately fell to his knees and began to beg not to touch him. Jack thought it was some new kind of psychic attack and was surprised. The leader of the monsters begged to be heard, and it was clear from his face that he was panicking. Compared to Jack, he was weak, as he was only a low-level demon king. It is said that he cannot control the artifacts that fall from him. The monsters hoped that Jack would spare them. The guy at that moment was surprised that he had most likely driven the boss of mental attacks to a breakdown. And so that evening, Jack sat on his bed and thought about how finding a spell against mental attacks was like looking for a needle in a haystack. In the end, he only found one mage skill book. After that, he decided that he needed to improve as quickly as possible, and so he decided to study it. As he studied the book, he realized that not only would he be able to see all of his minions, but he would also be able to choose the blessing itself after previewing the effects. When he was choosing what kind of monster he would make, he realized that these characteristics did not suit him at all. He ultimately chose the Shadow Asylum and Sacred Awakening, though they were of little use. Each god also had a power that was used to unlock the potential contained within the target's body. This trial luck can be infused into the divine power of a servant or someone else. Jack realized that while looking through the monster's panel, he saw something interesting. The servant was surprised that the guy could actually see the panel of other professions. Jack didn't even suspect that this was strange, and thought that it was all because of the system. After that, he smiled and said that there was nothing to worry about, and that he would find out everything in time. And after some time, the guy was already in a secret kingdom called the Lair of the Red Moon. He told the girl from his team that he would explain everything later, but now they needed to defeat the boss. Seeing him, they ran to their leader and said that Jack had come to them again. The leader of the Roses burst into tears and said that he was tired, so he dumped all the work on the weak monsters. And just a couple of minutes later, Jack was already happy that the monsters had dropped the artifacts he needed. When everyone was in class, the teacher said that this was the secret realm they had explored last week, and it was also their first contact with the gods. At this moment, the teacher did not think about the fact that the guild family's opinion was not to make obvious statements against the gods, but to objectively tell everyone about the discovery in this secret kingdom. At this moment, Jack was talking to the monster. The teacher suggested taking a 15-minute break. Tom called Jack over and said that he wanted to ask him something alone. When they went into the hallway where no one was, Tom asked if Jack knew how to bless the success of the test, to which Jack responded with agreement. Tom thought to himself that this was predictable. Jack said it was a unique blessing. At this moment, Tom thought about how Jack's tone seemed so calm, and he didn't care at all about the blessing that true Holy Spirit had given him. Tom decided to say that he was worried about some way of controlling him, so he wanted to get to know Jack. The monster that always and everywhere went with Jack said that it seemed like this stump was shaken, because it tried to test Jack, but in the end, Jack got the upper hand. At this time, Jack was in the Azure Edge Guild. While he was there, something strange happened to him. Tom realized that because of those two clashes, he felt that the power of the Almighty God was no longer so great. However, Tom really doesn't understand why he decided to enter his secret kingdom and reveal it. The guy figured out that Jack's strength was truly extraordinary, but he hadn't used any skills beyond their knowledge yet, usually even simple attacks. Tom told his friend that, with all his respect for Jack, after experiencing his divine power for himself, he found it difficult to compare him to anyone else. And he added that what he didn't understand most was why he decided to enter their secret kingdom and do so many conspicuous things if he wanted to hide his identity. Surprisingly, Jack only received a couple of divine artifacts. Nobody understood why he still attended training. One man said that there is a mysterious boss behind Jack, and even if he is not an almighty god, he is at least connected to him. The monster asked Jack if he thought the true Holy Spirit would take the bait, to which Jack replied that the lucky deceased artifact was a very clever disguise. He added that the situation was unclear, so he did not act rashly. But suddenly Jack was invited to dinner. Then Tom decided that the fish was already on the hook. Tom's friend said he remembered him saying that Jack sometimes acted alone. Jack realized what it meant. He was planning to attack when he was alone. It will be a battle between two gods. Jack said that to make it easier, he deliberately chose a secluded remote place. The monster said that maybe he was hiding, waiting for the right moment. Comrade Toma thought that although he had already made a conclusion based on the information he had collected, the boy reflected that in talking about his weaknesses, it was ultimately easier to simply rely on his own reasoning. However, he was not confident, and thought that he would go straight to Jack and start a fight. The boy realized that he was placing too much importance on the chess pieces under his control. At first, he planned to capture all his friends and use them as bargaining chips. And by the time Jack gets his hands on it, it's too late. When the guy came, he was shocked because he didn't understand what was happening. But suddenly an incomprehensible voice said that he was a god, but was attacking innocent people. It was Jack, and he stated that he knew about his dastardly plan. So he prepared in advance, and everything happened exactly as he expected. When the boy saw Jack, he screamed. The monster asked Jack if it was possible for the Holy Spirit to do something to someone close to him. He said he wasn't sure, but the gods had already done it once. Divine Revelation had a blessing, a shelter for shadows. He said that he would fight one guy first, then the rest, and then test the effect of this blessing. The guy decided that now was not the time to think out loud. At this time, Jack became very angry and shouted that the guy did not deserve the title of god. After their fight, Jack said that the guy had to be finished, to which the monster replied that even a god would probably not be able to withstand this spell. His Excellency said that last time he made a mistake in the secret realm of trials, he was struck by a forbidden spell, but survived by drinking a healing potion. Jack said that he didn't expect the true Grey Spirit to take over the body and directly enter their world. At this time, something was thundering in the divine realm under the control of the true Holy Spirit. The assistant ran up to his master and shouted. No one understood how it was possible that an almighty god could control the power of darkness. Even the 7 evil gods did not use the powers of darkness to such an extent. The man wondered if it was possible that the almighty god had taken possession of the one they were looking for, and he added that it was necessary to contact other gods as quickly as possible. But suddenly he disappeared, and said that he could not allow them to see him in such a state. At this time in the Azure Edge Guild, the guy said that he was finally able to return after so many days spent in the hospital. He asked his friend if anyone had come to see him while he was away. They continued to discuss business. The boy wondered whether he should tell his brother about the true color spirit. At this time, something happened in the secret realm of testing. Jack was talking on the phone with Tom. The guy said that his brother had just returned and was already shocked. The monster explained that the secret realm of trials is an extension of the realm of the gods, and a base that allows them to spread their faith in different measures. He also said that after the battle with Jack, the true spirit of the entity completely severed its connection with this world. Tom asked in surprise if they had fought him. Toma was glad that he had not done anything that could harm Jack and thanked him for his help. He said that if he needed help, he could contact him. Even though everyone is free from the true spirit at the moment, they still need to leave the strategy for the future. After all, sooner or later, other gods may visit everyone. Jack thanked everyone for their trust. The girl thought that her brother would never believe her about what she was going to tell him. Tom was so happy that he decided that he had been chosen by the gods. At this time, Karen began to think that all those inexplicable things were done by Jack. Brad reflected on the fact that Jack had never harmed the innocent, but on the contrary, many were only able to survive thanks to his help. Jack reflected that he seemed to have come to an agreement with everyone. When he looked at one of those present, he decided that from the very beginning he had such a face that enthusiasm was just pouring out. He said he didn't think anyone wanted to watch the world being trampled by the gods at will. And also, since this world is at a very low level and lags behind others in many aspects, they are left to look for solutions only in other worlds. Karan said that the achievement emblem potion will help improve your skill level. Jack thought about how a couple of days ago he half-absorbed Lita's weapon God's Death and gained new memories. Then Jack asked again about the enhancements and charms. He also agreed that both would help them upgrade their equipment. I thought about the fact that they always used weapons only for their intended purpose, and they had plenty to choose from. Jack said that to improve or enchant, special items are needed. Mountain copper, mithril, pure gold. The guy next to him thought about the fact that they had never heard of such materials. Jack explained that these materials were unfamiliar to them and could only be found in secret worlds. Suddenly my brother's phone rang. He asked for forgiveness and walked away. He asked what these materials were and what they looked like. Friend Brad loudly said that he was leaving immediately. Brad went to one place because there were problems there. Putting on a protective suit, he laughed and said that no one could defeat him. The assistant who was with him added that the one who disappeared several years ago was so strong, and she added that no attacks had any effect on him. When Brad saw the bailiff in front of him, he was very surprised. In front of him stood a tall, strong guy who said that Brad's magic was useless against him. Then Brad decided to use magic, to which the enemy replied that his armor was reinforced with Lithril. Brad asked again what exactly the enemy's armor was reinforced with. At this point, the enemy did not understand what was happening, as Brad was simply running away. After running away, Brad called his assistant and said that he had found a way to get Lithril. The assistant reported that he had heard of a mutant that was so strong that he was unable to handle it and called for reinforcements. Then Brad realized that several huge explosions had attracted him. When Brad beat his opponent, he didn't understand what was happening. The opponent screamed at Brad to give him back his clothes. At this time, reinforcements came to Brad, and they began to examine the clothes. The man thought that there was no point in taking away the equipment, because all the reinforced equipment was tied to the owner's soul. Others would not be able to wear it. Then Jack walked up to his opponent, hit him on the head and asked where he got the mithril. The enemy shouted that the Demon King had noticed him, and he went with him to his secret kingdom and practiced there for several years. After that, Jack told him to quickly tell where it was. Jack noted that he didn't expect the limit to be 30 people. According to that guy, the monsters in this secret kingdom are mostly orcs, with 5 tribes in total. Their main leader lives in the largest tribe. The guards asked the man what he was laughing at, to which he replied that he was simply thinking about something. He was filled with curiosity about what the expressions on his colleagues' faces would be like when they found themselves in the secret kingdom. After this, Jack passed through a portal into a dark, gloomy realm. One of the guys remarked that the place resembled an arena. Suddenly, Olivia, seeing the inscription, asked what the demand to kill everyone meant. The team realized that the barrier could not be broken. Noticing their attempts to escape, the monsters advised them to save their strength for the upcoming battle. Brad realized that these 5 monsters were the leaders of the orc tribes. Jack demanded that all the monsters appear. They quickly showed the boss the places where weapons are created and improved. One of the monsters admitted that his hands were shaking and asked not to embarrass him in front of his superiors. Jack was amazed at the sight of the equipment enhancement. The chieftain asked if the boy was happy, while the other monster wondered who Jack might be. As he approached the chief, he almost died of fear, as the guy looked extremely menacing. The leader was haunted by the feeling of impending destruction, so he decided to surrender in order to save his life. Jack reflected on how their world didn't have such equipment, and the differences in classes and races made training impossible. The chief stated that they were honored that the boy was interested in their improved equipment. Jack was surprised that the chief agreed without bargaining about the price. Monsters are used to the fact that their secret kingdom is usually captured. The boss is killed, and only then they enter into negotiations. The chief offered Jack a blood pact. After the hands touched, the bloody ritual began. Suddenly Jack noticed the skill activating and was surprised that it happened on its own. The chieftain, seeing this, was shocked, deciding that the boy was one of the 7 monster gods, since a divine pact of mercy had appeared. He immediately dropped to one knee, apologizing for his ignorance. Jack was amazed that simply signing the contract turned him into a monster god. The chieftain believed that now, with divine blessing, he could become the leader of the orcs. Jack didn't understand why the monster continued to bow to him, hoping that no one noticed. The guy asked not to tell others about him. The leader replied that it would take time to strengthen. After some time, they announced that the first batch was ready. Suddenly Jack heard someone asking who woke him up. The boy didn't understand why he heard a voice in his mind, and it made him angry. The voice was very loud and the guy didn't understand what was happening. He finally directed his power to ask who was making that sound in his head. Suddenly a monster appeared in front of him, and they both asked each other who they were. The monster screamed that he was an evil fire, one of the 7 demonic gods. Jack thought the servant had mentioned this creature when she told him about her memories. The demon god said that, judging by Jack's reaction, this was his first encounter with a deity, and asked him not to be afraid. Suddenly Jack remembered and said that when the 12 gods and the 7 evil gods were fighting, he killed him. Then the demonic fire became angry and shouted at the guy to clearly and distinctly tell who he was. Jack thought he was being very noisy and decided to calm him down. Suddenly, a system panel appeared in front of him, surprising the guy. The monster continued to get angry and told the boy to look at him. Then Jack decided to use divine fusion and looked the monster in the eyes. At this time, one of the guys was in the divine realm of the sacred stele. He bowed to God, not hoping for mercy. When God appeared, he was angry, because he asked not to be disturbed. After that, he said that the returner of dead souls and the eternal morning star had come to visit. One of the 12 major deities, the returner of dead souls, and also one of the 12 main deities, the eternal lost star. The guy said it was all nonsense and he just needed help sorting out some problems. This was precisely the problem with the evil spirit's aura. The girl said that this was the power of a deity from one of the 7 evil gods. Then the returner of dead souls said that according to their research, this merger is currently quite stable. God thought that the almighty god of law had probably done this too, and he also thought that they were falling behind him again. God thought that was why he was not their partner. Only then did they have to use all means to eliminate him. The girl offered Jack some tea. The guy was thinking about reaching level 90, and the opening mission of 3 transformations. At this time, something strange was happening near the entrance to the secret kingdom. The guy said that he understands Jack's mood, but he can see everything himself. A few days ago, the entrance to the secret kingdom suddenly disappeared. Jack asked the service how this happened. Jack learned that when the secret realm accumulates enough energy, it enters a state of dormancy to strengthen itself. Once the process is complete, the entrance will reappear, releasing many monsters. The longer the kingdom remains dormant, the more powerful the monsters will be. Then the servant said that he had only 15 days, and asked if he would be able to do it in that time. And then he thought about the fact that since the system gives him such a task, it knows the risk. He also added that he needed to tell his comrades about the influx of evil spirits. The girl thought about how strong and influential Jack was. If even the captain immediately listened to his words, she understood that no one would have thought that he was already sitting there and drinking tea. Then the guy approached the gentleman and said that if he wanted to evacuate all the people, it would require a lot of time and manpower. After the order to evacuate people was approved, the guy quickly left to carry out the task. The monster asked his commander-in-chief if it would be okay if they opened the passage ahead of time. Then the chieftain answered him that if he ordered him, then he must obey and not worry about anything. The monster replied that he could say with certainty that he was nearby. The city began to suddenly evacuate. Servants ran through the streets, calling on people to stay away from the passage and run to the shelter. Monsters were flying around the city and laughing. The monsters decided to come in and argue among themselves, and after that they flew off to show off their skills. However, when one of the monsters saw something wrong, he immediately became scared. Jack addressed everyone, promising generous rewards and experience to those who could successfully resist the approaching wave of evil.